Chapter 3116-3116 Semi-Divine Medicine Refiner. Feng Wu frowned. One mine? I don't think that's enough. Elder Hellion was almost in tears. He wanted to grab her arm and tell her it was enough. One mine would be more than enough. Meanwhile, Lord Dai stepped out. Elder Dongfang, how can we give a mine away? That doesn't sound appropriate. Elder Dongfang ignored them and only stared at Feng Wu. One mine. If you accept it, I'll give it to you. If not, just let Dongfang Ziling die. After that, the military academy will bear Imperial College an irreconcilable grudge, and my sect won't stop until the Feng family is destroyed. Feng Wu smiled at her. Are you threatening me now? Elder Dongfang said calmly. No, I'm begging you. Elder Hellion tugged at Feng Wu's sleeve and whispered, Kiddo, you should take the offer while you can. Dongfang can't give us 2 mines. Her school will kill her for that. If the military academy fired Elder Dongfang for that, the Imperial College wouldn't get anything. After all, the mines weren't Elder Dongfang's personal property. Feng Wu felt a little sorry, but 1 mine was already a sweet deal. She said, Fine. 1 mine, then. Elder Hellion, you should seal the deal now. Elder Dongfang stared at her. Save my niece first. Feng Wu said, I'll do it while you hand over the mine. She would be doing it for nothing if Elder Dongfang went back on her word after Dongfang Ziyun was saved. Elder Dongfang was furious, but when she saw that Dongfang Ziyun was barely breathing, she had no choice but to seal the deal now. Lord Dai tried to intervene, but he didn't say anything in the end when he saw the state Dongfang Ziyun was in. He knew that if he opposed the idea and Dongfang Ziyun died, Elder Dongfang would blame everything on him, and he didn't want to take that responsibility. Therefore, Lord Dai gestured at a guard to sneak out and deliver the message to the other elders. The elders were the most frequent users of the mines. Only a handful of the most outstanding graduates could cultivate there. Feng Wu walked up to Dongfang Ziyun. Zhu Hongyu glared at Feng Wu, but Feng Wu didn't even look at him. She took out an ointment and asked Zhu Hongyu to put it on the wound on Dongfang's neck. Once that was done, Zhu Hongyu asked, What's next? Feng Wu asked, What do you mean? Zhu Hongyu frowned. How should we treat her next? Feng Wu glanced at Elder Dongfang and saw that she was still in the middle of sealing the deal, so she sat down and said indifferently, Just wait. Zhu Hongyu said angrily, Is that how a semi-divine medicine refiner should behave? Don't you know the importance of saving lives? Feng Wu glanced at him. I see you know I'm a semi-divine medicine refiner. Zhu Hongyu was speechless. Chapter 3117 Where did he go? 3117 Where did he go? If Feng Wu were an elderly semi-divine medicine refiner, Zhu Hongyu would worship her as if she were an immortal being. He would probably kneel at her feet. However, Feng Wu was only a teenager. Zhu Hongyu couldn't help but see her as an ordinary girl and forget who she really was. He had no choice but to fight back his frustration. Before long, Elder Hellion came back to Feng Wu, holding some paperwork. He said excitedly, Xiao Wu, look! Feng Wu spotted it right away, but when she saw how thrilled Elder Hellion was, she snapped at him. Have you sealed the deal? Yes. It's done. Mine number 3 is ours, said Elder Hellion. I know it's the worst of the 4 mines, but... Feng Wu asked, What? You accepted the worst mine? Elder Hellion said, Well. Feng Wu checked the paperwork and saw that the mine really was the worst one. She rolled her eyes at Elder Hellion. She said, I see money indeed means very little to you. Elder Hellion blushed, but he hadn't been able to bring himself to ask for more. He felt they didn't deserve that mine because he felt that Feng Wu had inflicted that wound on Dongfang. Feng Wu said, You can forget your guilt. Do you see Dongfang's symptoms? Does she look like she's been poisoned? Yes, she does. Elder Hellion nodded. Feng Wu said, That sword belongs to Dongfang Xian herself. That meant. What? Elder Hellion cried out. She put poison on her blade. She wanted to kill you. Feng Wu nodded. It doesn't take much for a supreme-level medicine refiner to neutralize the poison. Elder Hellion lost his temper. She tried to poison you, and you're still helping her? Damn it. If I had known, I would never have let her off the hook so easily. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at him again. It's not over yet. After she recovers, she'll try her best to kill me. Elder Hellion said, she wouldn't dare. Feng Wu said, she'll never stop trying until she's dead. Ask Elder Dongfang. She'll tell you what her niece is like. Elder Hellion looked at Elder Dongfang. Elder Dongfang acted as if she didn't know anything. Elder Hellion bellowed, if she's like that, we don't need to help her at all. Feng Wu said, we need the mine, don't we? Don't worry. If she attacks me again, I'll beat her until she's barely alive, and we'll have another mine. She'll be like our renewable energy source. Elder Hellion immediately calmed down. He almost felt sorry for Elder Dongfang. Elder Dongfang's face darkened. Her cold glare landed on Feng Wu. She could hear the treat in Feng Wu's tone. If Dongfang Xian offended Feng Wu again, Feng Wu would definitely carry out her word. How frustrating! Feng Wu reminded Elder Hellion, there's no time to get angry now. You should start working now. Elder Hellion carefully rolled up the paper and put it in his sleeve. What work? Feng Wu sighed. Don't you realize Lord Dai has slipped away? Where do you think he's going? Where did he go? Chapter 31-18 31-18 Guard Mine Number 3 31-18 Guard Mine Number 3 At first, Elder Hellion didn't know what Feng Wu was talking about, but Lord Mo did. He and Lord Dai had worked together for many years and knew each other only too well. He didn't go to mine number 3, did he? Elder Hellion's heart sank when he heard what Lord Mo said. He looked over his shoulder in astonishment. Feng Wu looked him in the eye and nodded. Elder Hellion wondered how the girl knew so much. Feng Wu added, if they remove the essence crystals from the mine in advance. They can't do that! Elder Hellion shouted. Elder Dongfang narrowed her eyes. That was indeed her plan. She had communicated with Lord Dai by exchanging a few looks, but somehow this girl had guessed it. How did she know that? How could she know what the military academy wanted to do? Feng Wu smirked. I know how malicious people can be. Meanwhile, Elder Hellion had already dashed off. Lord Mo also went to get the other elders. They had to guard their mine. Mine number 3 belonged to Imperial College now. Feng Wu's reminder had been timely, because when Elder Hellion arrived at the mine, the military academy was trying to move things out. Elder Hellion was furious. Elder Dongfang was so cunning. He didn't want to take too much from the military academy and had chosen the worst mine, but this was how they repaid him. He charged at them and took out the paperwork. Nobody touches a thing. The elders of Imperial College gradually arrived. They were all dumbfounded, including Elder Wu. They had just come back from the Dayless Woods and were going to cultivate, when they received the order to guard mine number 3. Wasn't that the military academy's mine? Why should they guard it? They were shocked by what they saw. Holy crap! Since when was it Imperial College's mine? Were they dreaming? Mine number 3 had been discovered a long time ago and was located to the southwest of the fortress. The military academy had used it to help so many capable members. As a result, they had 10,000 more spiritual overlords than Imperial College. The elders of the Imperial College had been so envious. But now, mine number 3 belonged to Imperial College. Was this really happening? Lord Mo told them that Feng Wu had won it from Elder Dongfang. Wait, they had only heard of Feng Wu's name for the first time the night before. Wasn't she the Crown Prince's little mistress? Didn't he keep her around like a pet? How did she win a mine? At first, the elders thought Feng Wu had won the crown prince's heart because of her pretty face, and didn't like her at all. But things had changed now. Lord Mo saw how dumbfounded the elders were. Moreover, only Elder Wu seemed to have a good impression on Feng Wu. Chapter 31-19 31-19 The Sack. 31-19 The Sack. That wouldn't do. The girl had made great contributions to Imperial College. Lord Mo had only briefly described what happened at first, but now, he told the others in detail how Feng Wu had outwitted Elder Dongfang until the old lady almost had a stroke. The others were dumbfounded. Even Elder Wu, who knew Feng Wu well, couldn't believe what he heard. They had obtained a new mind just like that. Feng Wu made it seem too easy. It almost felt like a dream. They weren't alone. The elders of the military academy were also shocked. Lord Mo's words were for elders on both sides. Why? Obviously, he wanted to show off. Do you see the new student of my school? She's amazing. Do you have anyone as good as she is? Do you? The elders of the military academy were speechless. They didn't want to accept the reality. The news was hard to swallow. With the paperwork, there was nothing they could do. If anything, they still had some dignity left. They would never forget Feng Wu's name again. Elder Gu, Elder Wu, Elder Yu, please get up. Lord Mo smiled at the three elders of the military academy as he asked them to leave. The three unfortunate elders were scheduled to cultivate here today and had been in the middle of their cultivation when the mines suddenly became imperial colleges. They didn't know how to vent their frustration. If you want an explanation, I suggest you go to your Elder Dongfang, said Elder Helion with a smile. What else could they say? They had to leave in frustration and went to talk to Elder Dongfang. Elder Wu said, I think Miss Dongfang will be in a lot of trouble. Lord Mo rubbed his chin and smiled. I wonder if Miss Dongfang will know when to stop. If she wouldn't stop and kept making trouble, Feng Wu would probably profit from it again. They couldn't wait to see that happen. The event of guarding mine number 3 was kept among the elders, and the spiritual kings hadn't heard about it yet. After the elders left the prison, Feng Wu was ready to leave too. Elder Dongfang said coldly, Feng Wu, you really are a piece of work. Her tone was threatening. Feng Wu wouldn't give her what she wanted. She stopped and smiled at Elder Dongfang. Are you threatening the only semi-divine medicine refiner in the fortress and even the entire empire? Elder Dongfang was speechless. She thought she was going to have a heart attack. No one could change the fact that Feng Wu was a semi-divine medicine refiner. Feng Wu and her friends were ready to leave. A thought struck Feng Wu and she told Chu Chu, don't forget to bring that along. Chu Chu was still excited. All he could think of was the mine, and when he heard Feng Wu, he asked in confusion, what do you mean? The sack. Feng Wu reminded him. Chu Chu had grown tired from standing, so he sat down on the sack. Did he realize what he was sitting on? Chapter 31-20 31-20 Military Badges. 31-20 Military Badges. Chu Chu pouted. He couldn't understand why he had to carry the big sack around. However, he remembered Feng Wu said the sack contained some presents for them. What could they possibly be? When he sat on the sack, he didn't think it contained anything important. However, Feng Wu had said so, and he would carry the sack. Chu Chu threw the sack over his shoulder and asked, Boss, where are we going now? The others all looked at her. Where should they go next? They didn't seem to have a specific destination. Feng Wu smiled. The exchange center, obviously. She rolled her eyes at Chu Chu and the others. They were still students, so she had to help them graduate and become majors first. There had been more badges in the sack, but Feng Wu gave some to Feng Sun and Xian Yi. Despite their background, Feng Sun and Xian Yi had to work their way up the military ranks just like everybody else. They were both commanders, and the badges Feng Wu gave them could help them rise to senior colonels. Feng Wu had even asked Feng Sun about Jun Linyuan's rank. Feng Sun rolled his eyes at her. Do you think Boss Jun has any difficulty if he wants to kill the spiritual saints of the Dongsang Kingdom? Feng Wu said, no. Feng Sun asked, what about spiritual overlords? Feng Wu said, that'll be even easier. Feng Sun said, then what do you think his rank is? Feng Wu asked, what is it? Feng Sun said, the highest obviously. What else could Feng Wu say? What could she do? She could only exchange envious looks with Feng Sun, and the topic was over. Of course, Feng Wu could keep all the badges for herself, but that wouldn't be practical. First of all, one could only rise by so many ranks at one time. Secondly, she couldn't think only about herself. Her friends should grow with her. Therefore, she made the most reasonable arrangement and helped the others as best as she could. The others were perplexed when Feng Wu mentioned the exchange center. Chu Chu was the first to raise the question. Why the exchange center? We're all students, and we don't have enough points to exchange for anything. Of the 9 friends here, Chen Xiun, Sun Yu and Chu Chu were the most lively ones. Apart from Feng Wu, the other 5 were rather quiet. They were Wang Nian, Wang Xiao, Li Xiaochu, Li Zhan and Li Si. They had all participated in the competition against the military academy. Right now, they were all giving Feng Wu strange looks. They were far from ready to graduate. I think Captain Chen is almost there. They all turned to Chen Xiun. Chen Xiun smiled wryly. To graduate, we'll need at least 30,000 points, and I only have 20,000. I have a long way to go. He shook his head. I'll work hard in the outer ring after I recover. I want to graduate as quickly as possible. The others shook their heads. If Chen Xiu needed at least another year, graduating would be even harder for them. Feng Wu smiled but didn't tell them anything in advance. Chapter 31-21 31-21 Feng Wu, you're a loser. 31-21 Feng Wu, you're a loser. They soon arrived at the exchange center. It was the only exchange center in the fortress, and cultivators of all levels, including the spiritual overlords, would come here to redeem points. The place was quite crowded. The entire building was devoted solely to exchange services. The military ranks were exchanged in the east, and the resources were exchanged in the west. Right now, there were dozens of people in the lobby. Before Feng Wu could say anything, somebody greeted her. Hey, isn't it Feng Wu? Feng Wu looked up and saw it was Senior Sister Lan. What an unfortunate coincidence. But actually, it wasn't a coincidence at all. Senior Sister Lan had nothing to do lately and had been hanging around in the exchange center just to wait for Feng Wu. Chen Xiun had forced Senior Sister Lan to sign the waiver on the badges, and she hated Feng Wu for that. She wanted to know if Feng Wu had died in the Dayless Woods. People would come back from the woods to redeem points here all the time, and she could gather a lot of information there. Hence, Senior Sister Lan had been waiting for news of Feng Wu's death. During her stay here, she made a new friend. Her name was Shan Jingfei, and she was a current student. As for her cultivation level, well, the other party was a level 3 spiritual king, and Senior Sister Lan didn't think much of her at all. However, Shan Jingfei disliked Feng Wu as much as she did. Having spent some time together bad-mouthing Feng Wu, the two of them became friends. On that particular day, Senior Sister Lan and Shan Jingfei were hanging out in the lobby with their arms joined. After the long wait, Senior Sister Lan finally saw Feng Wu. The sight of Feng Wu shocked her. Feng Wu was alive and laughing. Shan Jingfei's face darkened as well. In the past few days, Shan Jingfei began to believe Senior Sister Lan's brainwashing and thought Feng Wu was dead. Feng Wu didn't expect to meet the two girls here either. It's you. Feng Wu nodded indifferently before she ignored them. She told Chu Chu, let's find a corner to open that sack and split the things inside. The sack. Shan Jingfei and senior sister Lan looked at the sack in Chu Chu's hand. Feng Wu had found this random sack, and it was as old as a rag. The cloth was so worn that it looked like something that belonged to a beggar. Did you pick it up in the dayless woods? Senior sister Lan asked arrogantly. Feng Wu nodded. Yes. It was full of badges she had found near the spider. This is good stuff, Feng Wu said seriously. Senior sister Lan laughed. Feng Wu, you're such a loser. Feng Wu was perplexed. Senior sister Lan said, Do you carry this sack around in the dayless woods like a little beggar and beg for other people's protection? Is that how you get out? Is that why the bag is so worn? Feng Wu was speechless. Before she could say anything, Shan Jingfei chuckled. Sister Lan, don't say such things. Feng Wu is a girl, and you'll hurt her feelings. Chapter 31-22, 31-22 What mine? 31-22 What mine? Before she could say anything, Shan Jingfei chuckled. Sister Lan, don't say such things. Feng Wu is a girl, and you'll hurt her feelings. Senior sister Lan chuckled. I see. What a load of bullshit. Feng Wu found senior sister Lan's reaction rather idiotic. However, senior sister Lan didn't seem like she was going to stop any time soon. She only raised her voice when she saw Feng Wu wouldn't talk to her. She looked around and found the person she needed. Isn't that senior brother Jiang? Senior brother Jiang. Min, I didn't know you were here. Song Yao, you're here too! Somebody had spread the news that Feng Wu was in the exchange center, and many people gathered around. Many of them were Feng Wu's old acquaintances. Xing Chongtian, Yang Wan, and Song Yao were all here. They were thrilled to see Feng Wu. Yang Wan took Feng Wu's hand and was almost in tears. Feng Wu asked in concern, Are you getting better? Yang Wan had been severely injured. Yang Wan nodded. I'm all right now. Thank you for saving my life. Feng Wu smiled. Don't worry about it. Feng Wu had saved Yang Wan's life. Senior sister Lan didn't like the sound of that. Feng Wu, did you help Yang Wan? She's from the military academy. Why did you do that? Yang Wan was displeased and glared at senior sister Lan. Why can't the Imperial College help me? Have you forgotten about the regulations we've memorized? Outside this fortress, the two schools should work as one. Senior sister Lan paled. She had said the wrong thing. Still, she glared at Feng Wu. Fine, you've saved some lives. Why did you get so close to the military academy? You've betrayed Imperial College. You must have sold our secrets to the military academy. Feng Wu really didn't know what to say because the accusation was preposterous. Sun Yu and Chu Chu looked at each other in amazement. As current students, they always respected graduates like senior sister Lan. Before, they had always found the graduates unapproachable and beyond their reach. They wouldn't even look a graduate in the face when they met on the street. However, senior sister Lan's behavior made them look down on her. She acted like a shrew and the most unreasonable kind. Sun Yu summoned up his courage and glared at senior sister Lan. Xiao Wu never betrayed Imperial College. She just won a mine from the military academy for us. That's right. Chu Chu was also brave enough to refute the senior sister. Xiao Wu is awesome, and she's done great things for Imperial College. You're making things up. Xiao Wu won us a mine. Everybody around them was astonished, and they all stared at Feng Wu. A mine? Really? It can't be. She's only a student. What mine? A coal mine? Chapter 31-23 31-23 Lieutenant Colonel Jiang. 31-23 Lieutenant Colonel Jiang. Chu Chu blushed when he saw that the others didn't believe him. It's not a coal mine. It's an essence crystal mine. Chu Chu raised his voice. Everybody fell silent for a second. They all thought Chu Chu was an idiot and burst out laughing. An essence crystal mine. Don't make me laugh. I'm having cramps. How can anyone be so stupid? He can't even tell a proper lie. They all laughed as loudly as they could. No one could hold back. They might believe Choo Choo if he was talking about tens of thousands of essence crystals, but he was talking about a mine. Even the elders can't do that. Who does she think she is? Senior Sister Lan clicked her tongue. You people are so pathetic. Shan Jingfei then whispered something in her ear, and Senior Sister Lan's eyes lit up. She remembered something. Looking around, she found the person in the crowd. Senior Brother Jiang. Senior Brother Jiang. Senior Brother Jiang wasn't an ordinary graduate. He graduated from Imperial College 10 years ago and was currently a lieutenant colonel and a level 5 spiritual king. Senior Brother Jiang was here. Someone in the crowd had told him to come here. Shan Jingfei thought she saw Zhuo Qingluan in the crowd, but when she looked again, Zhuo Qingluan wasn't there. She rubbed her eyes and wondered if she had been mistaken. Meanwhile, Zhuo Qingluan was staring at Feng Wu while hiding in the crowd. Her cold gaze reminded one of a lurking snake. She was like a snake that could jump up at any moment and bite with her venomous fangs. Feng Wu didn't know Zhuo Qingluan was around. She just wanted to redeem her points, but these people had surrounded her, and she couldn't get away. She couldn't even talk to other people. How annoying. Feng Wu was about to lose her temper, when Senior Sister Lan invited Senior Brother Jiang over. Jiang stood in front of Feng Wu and looked at her. Senior Sister Lan told Jiang, "This is Miss Feng Wu. I heard she has a habit of bullying Miss Dongfang. She even made Miss Dongfang cry." Here in the fortress, Miss Dongfang specifically meant Dongfang Xiun, was madly in love with her. When Feng Wu came back, Jiang had taunted her because of Dongfang Xiun. "I remember you." Choo Choo patted his own forehead with a shudder. He told Feng Wu, "Xiao Wu, he was so mean to you. He's not a good person. When you were still in the Dayless Woods, this man bragged about how you would die in the woods. He also said you were only a student and it would take you at least 10 years to become a lieutenant colonel. And there's more." Choo Choo had a good memory, and he repeated everything Jiang said about Feng Wu. This Jiang gave Feng Wu a headache. She didn't want any trouble, but these people just wouldn't leave her alone. Did she look so easy to pick on? Chapter 31-24 31-24 Badges returned. 31-24 Badges returned. Before Feng Wu said anything, Jiang frowned and stared at her. "You made Dongfang cry." He omitted the "miss," as if he and Dongfang Xiun were closer than other people. Feng Wu frowned. "You're in love with her, then?" Jiang didn't try to hide his emotions. "Yes. I won't marry anyone else." Feng Wu said, "I see." Before she could finish, Sun Yu yelled, "According to Senior Sister Lan, that's betraying Imperial College. Senior Brother Jiang, you can't do that." Feng Wu looked at Sun Yu in satisfaction. Her friend always knew when to say the right thing. The others chimed in, booing and hooting. Feng Wu wasn't alone anymore. She was surrounded by friends. Senior Sister Lan felt rather embarrassed. Jiang sneered at Feng Wu. "You're smart. You know how to fan the flames. But those are all petty tricks. When facing my absolute power, you're completely vulnerable. I'm Jiang Chutian, a lieutenant colonel and a level 5 spiritual king." Jiang smirked at Feng Wu. "What about you?" Senior Sister Lan said. She became a level 2 spiritual king during the battle in the arena earlier. Jiang sneered at Feng Wu. "A level 2 spiritual king? You don't have nearly enough power to show off." He then looked at Feng Wu's friends behind her. Students nowadays think so highly of themselves. Senior Brother Jiang looked at the students as if they were ants. He didn't try to hide his disdain. Sun Yu and Choo Choo were furious when they saw the look in Jiang's eyes. They couldn't stand the shame and frustration. They wanted to graduate and gain a higher rank. It would be like slapping Senior Brother Jiang in the face. Senior sister Lan joined in at that point. Senior brother Jiang, that's all she can do. She's not qualified to graduate. We can only take her seriously when she graduates, senior sister Lan said mockingly. She was a major at the moment. Why do you think she can't graduate? Yang Wan glared at senior sister Lan. She can do it. Yang Wan then took an exquisite box out of her sleeve and handed it to Feng Wu. Here are the badges of the Dongseng assassins you killed. I've kept them for you. Here you are. Senior sister Lan's face darkened. She thought Yang Wan was deliberately working against her. Just then, another person squeezed through the crowd. It was senior brother Min, who had fought alongside Feng Wu. He also gave his badges to Feng Wu. Here are some more badges from the Dongseng assassins you killed. I've also kept them for you. Please take them. Because Chen Ziyun had forced senior sister Lan to sign the waiver, she couldn't take any. The badges were shared between Chen Ziyun and senior brother Min. Chen Ziyun wouldn't take any either, so senior brother Min took all of them. However, he was a kind man and kept the badges without redeeming them. He wanted to give them back to Feng Wu when she returned. Feng Wu had never thought. Chapter 3125 3125 Open the sack. 3125 Open the sack. She never thought the badges she gave away would return to her at a critical moment like this. Weren't badges hard to get? Senior sister Lan's face darkened and she snorted. So what if they saved all their badges for you? There's only enough to let you graduate. As for becoming a major, dream on. Only enough to graduate. Feng Wu looked up at senior sister Lan, who was sneering at her. She turned to Jiang and saw that he was smirking as well. She turned her head and saw Shan Jingfei this time. She even spotted Zhuo Qingluan in the crowd. Feng Wu and Zhuo Qingluan's eyes met. Zhuo Qingluan didn't look away. Her eyes were malicious, and there was a smirk on her face. She was waiting to see Feng Wu make a fool of herself. Feng Wu turned around to look at her friends. The concern in their eyes comforted Feng Wu. She smiled at Chu Chu. Time to get up. Chu Chu said, What? He had gotten tired and sat on the sack again. Hearing what Feng Wu said, he immediately got up. Feng Wu gave him a long look before she said indifferently, Open the sack. Chu Chu said obediently, Sure. He opened the sack without another word or unnecessary actions. When the sack was opened, no one took a look because they weren't interested. However, Chu Chu jumped to his feet as if his butt was on fire. Holy crap! The lobby was quiet, and Chu Chu's voice could tear the roof off. It startled everybody. Sun Yu had to grab Chu Chu to stop him from falling. What's wrong? What was going on? Chu Chu pointed at the sack with a shaking finger. Look in the sack. What made him so excited? The sack was only slightly open, and one had to be very close to see what was inside. Senior sister Lan frowned. He's only pretending to be excited. He's making it look like the sack is full of the badges of our enemies. Chu Chu looked at her in amazement. Senior sister Lan grew uneasy when she saw that look, and wondered what it was about. Meanwhile, the others learned the answer. Sun Yu opened the sack wider. Now that it was fully open, everybody could see what was inside. Military badges. Military badges of the Dongseng Kingdom. It wasn't just a few of them. It was a full sack of badges. Everybody who saw this froze on the spot, as if they were under a spell. Nobody made a sound. Everyone thought they were seeing things. It was either that or the world had gone insane. Maybe it's only badges on the surface. Senior sister Lan tried to convince herself. Even if that's the case, it's still a lot of badges. She'll have enough to become a lieutenant colonel, said someone next to senior sister Lan. Jiang was waiting to see Feng Wu make a fool of herself, but things had turned out quite differently. He frowned. Chu Chu was the most excited of them all. He could barely form a coherent sentence. I sat on the sack. More than once. Chapter 3126 3126 Sharing the Prize. 3126 Sharing the Prize. Choo Choo grabbed Sun Yu and pointed at the sack. I sat on it several times. Oh my God! My butt has never touched something so valuable. I sat on a pile of badges. I can brag about it for the rest of my life. Sun Yu gave Choo Choo an indescribable look. He was right. He could indeed brag about it for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, everybody was looking at Feng Wu with utmost respect, especially people like Sun Yu, who had followed her here from the prison. In the competition against the military academy, they had seen how capable Feng Wu was. She single-handedly defeated 5 opponents. But now, she had risen to a new level. She broke into prison, almost killed Dongfang Ziyun, and confronted Elder Dongfang and got an essence crystal mine from her. Here in the exchange center, she had just produced a sack full of badges from their enemies. She was amazing. A whole sack. It's just on the surface. Senior Sister Lan smirked. Badges have different levels, and shoulder plates look like badges too. Maybe a lot of them are shoulder plates. Just like the Junwu Empire, the Dongsang Kingdom had students as well. Students' shoulder plates were worthless. No, that's not the case. Shan Jingfei took a step forward, glanced at the sack and whispered to Senior Sister Lan, "They're all military badges. All of them." Senior Sister Lan's face went livid. Feng Wu laughed inwardly. Feng Sun had picked up the badges one by one. Of course he wouldn't fill the sack with shoulder plates. They were all military badges, and the valuable kind. Senior Sister Lan cleared her throat. So what if they're all military badges? Ordinary ones aren't worth much. Sun Yu glanced at her. Senior Sister Lan, you're only a major, aren't you? I don't think you should talk about your rank like that. Senior Sister Lan almost choked. She wondered where Feng Wu's friends learned how to fight back. Why were they all so frustrating? Senior Sister Lan smirked. Who knows what's underneath the surface? It's probably full of junk. Feng Wu turned the sack upside down without saying a word. The valuable badges fell in a pile on the floor. Everyone looked at Feng Wu in astonishment. Why did Feng Wu look like she was pouring out stones? Her movements were so rough. People sucked in their breath. Those aren't ordinary badges. Most of them are lieutenant colonel ones. I see colonel ones too. Holy crap! There are senior colonel badges. Everybody sounded shocked, but no one dared to try and take the badges. If anybody tried such a thing in the exchange center, they would be stripped of their rank and would be kicked out of Peace Grassland. Meanwhile, Zhang's face had practically turned green. He had just been questioning Feng Wu, and had said that it would take her at least 10 years to become a lieutenant colonel. But now, she had more than enough badges to become a general. Oh God! Would he have to address Feng Wu as General Feng? Jiang felt like crying. To his surprise, Feng Wu did something else. She started calling names. Ying Yuan, Senior Brother Min, Song Yao, Yang Wan. Chapter 3127 3127 Xiao Wu, that won't do. 3127 Xiao Wu, that won't do. She started calling out names. Ying Yuan, Senior Brother Min, Song Yao, Yang Wan. When she saw Xing Changtian, she added his name. Xing Changtian. Xing Changtian said, "Yes?" He looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment, not knowing what she wanted to do. Feng Wu waved her hand in a generous manner. Go! Go where? Go grab a handful of badges. Take as many as you can, but you only have one go. Feng Wu had gotten this inspiration from her previous life. She remembered how some generous firms would put cash in a box during the year-end party and let their employees take a handful from it. They could keep everything they grabbed in one go. It must have been a great feeling. What? The others were all baffled. Grab a handful? That was so generous. Xing Changtian didn't know what to say. When they first met, he thought Feng Wu was as weak as an ant. The memory made him want to slap himself. To make it a fair game, Feng Wu let Chu Chu put all the badges back into the sack. While Chu Chu held the sack open, Sun Yu scooped the badges into it. If someone didn't know better, they would think the two boys were loading potatoes. Nobody was redeeming their points because they had all gathered around. Many people even brought their friends. Such generosity probably only happened once in 100 years. After the badges were back in the sack, Feng Wu gestured at those that she had just named, telling them to form a queue. As for Senior Sister Lan and the others, Feng Wu glanced at them in amazement. After the initial shock, why hadn't they slipped away? What were they thinking? She didn't have time to deal with them. She was busy. When Yang Wan recovered from her astonishment and realized she wasn't dreaming, she tried to turn down the offer. Xiao Wu, I can't take them. Feng Wu said, You can. Yang Wan blushed. You saved my entire team, and we were only holding on to the badges for you. You don't need to give us any reward. It's us who should repay you for what you did. The others all nodded and agreed with her. Feng Wu said earnestly, Don't worry about it. I picked them up in the woods. I hardly needed to do anything. Feng Sun was walking toward her at that moment and almost slipped. Yes, they had picked them up, but it had been a lot of work. He had trembled under the sacred imperial spider's covetous gaze the entire time he was picking up the badges. It had been hard work. Seeing how serious Feng Wu was, those people finally realized Feng Wu genuinely wanted to give them some badges. Their good deeds had paid off. Hence, they lined up and grabbed the badges in turn. The badges were quite sizable, so they couldn't take much with one hand. There was just about enough to raise their ranks by one level. It all depended on their luck. The most fortunate ones could get badges of colonels or senior colonels. After Yang Wan and the others took the badges, they happily went to redeem their points. Feng Wu turned to her friends. She had been observing Sun Yu and the others when the rest were doing the lucky draw. She had her own plans. Chapter 3128 3128 I'll be a colonel for now. 3128 I'll be a colonel for now. She wanted to help her friends, but she didn't want to let ungrateful people take advantage of her. Therefore, she would only help those people whom she deemed simple and kind. She was relieved to see that there was no envy on her friends' faces. I'll be calling some more names. This time, it was Feng Wu's team members' turn. Each member could take 2 handfuls of badges. Feng Wu knew very well who her good friends were. Among them, Chen Ziyun, Chu Yun and Sun Yu could take 3 handfuls. As for what badges they could get, it all depended on their luck. After giving away the badges, she had less than half a sack left. All those people had redeemed their points. Yang Wan and her team members all rose by 1 rank and had almost all become lieutenant colonels. Chen Ziyun and his 7 friends all graduated. Other than that, they all became majors. They didn't redeem all their points because they weren't in a hurry. They hadn't gained enough accomplishments yet, and rising higher would only give them empty titles. Therefore, they all kept their points for cultivation resources. In the end, it was Feng Wu's turn. She dragged the sack to the exchange counter. There were 3 counters. Counter 1 and 3 had female staff, while Counter 2 had a male staff member. Feng Wu immediately chose the one in the middle. She knew how women could turn against each other, and how men tended to be friendly toward her. It was so rare for her to meet kind girls, so she cherished all her female friends. On the other hand, boys were usually nice to her. Senior Sister Lan's face darkened. Why? She was also part of the team. Why couldn't Yuan, Senior Brother Min, Chen Ziyun and everybody else get those badges? Why was she left out? That wasn't fair. She stared at Feng Wu, hoping the latter would feel guilty for this and suddenly call her name. That never happened. She decided Feng Wu was doing it on purpose and was trying to humiliate her. The idea filled Senior Sister Lan with hatred. The lieutenant colonel sitting behind counter 2 was called Ning Jingqiu, and he watched Feng Wu as she approached him with her half a sack of badges. In fact, everybody had watched when Feng Wu shared the badges with her friends, and Ning envied those people so much that he wished he were Feng Wu's friend. His 2 female colleagues behind the counters looked like they wanted to dig holes in Feng Wu's skin with their eyes. Ahem! Ning Jingqiu cleared his throat and adjusted his facial expression before he beamed at Feng Wu. Hello, Miss Feng Wu. Feng Wu was surprised. How do you know my name? Ning Jingqiu chuckled. You've attracted quite a bit of attention here. It's hard not to know your name. The girl was already a beauty. With an amazed look on her face, she looked adorable. Ning Jingqiu immediately became her fan. How can I help you? His smile was sincere. I'd like to redeem all these badges for points. After that, I'll rise to, well, Feng Wu gave it some thought and said, I think I'll become a colonel for now. Lieutenant Colonel Jiang almost spat out a mouthful of blood. For now. What was that supposed to mean? Did she mean she could even become a senior colonel or a general, but she decided to stop at colonel for the time being? Chapter 3129 Little Feng Sun, come here. 3129 Little Feng Sun, come here. Did she mean she could even become a senior colonel or a general, but she decided to stop at colonel for the time being? The others all gave Feng Wu strange looks. Even Ning Jingqiu was shocked. A colonel? For now? Ning Jingqiu looked at Feng Wu's shoulder badge to double-check that she was indeed a student. When her friends redeemed their badges, they only had enough points to raise their ranks by 1 level. Feng Wu simply gave him the entire sack. Turn them into points first, please. Ning Jingqiu was speechless when he saw the half-sack of badges. He rubbed his nose and asked curiously, If you don't mind me asking, where did you get these badges? Everybody pricked up their ears. They were so curious. Feng Wu said, I found them and picked them up. Had she been telling the truth all along? The people around them listened with flickering eyes. They wanted Ning Jingqiu to ask her where she found them. They wanted to get some, too. Ning Jingqiu then asked the question everybody wanted to ask. May I ask where you found these badges? He felt abashed asking that question, and his fair cheeks turned pink. Feng Wu didn't mind at all. She waved her hand and said, In the sacred Imperial Spider's Woods. The sacred Imperial Spider's Woods. That name sounded familiar. Holy cow! Isn't that the territory of one of the 7 Beast Kings? The sacred Imperial Spider is a peak spiritual overlord, isn't it? It's probably a spiritual saint already. OMG! That's so scary. How did she find those badges? Many people looked at Feng Wu in amazement and waited for her answer. Feng Wu could tell they wanted her to show them the way. She wasn't going to do that. If the sacred Imperial Spider was displeased, it could eat all these people. She wasn't joking. Feng Wu looked up and saw a familiar face in the crowd. Little Feng Sun. Over here. She waved at her brother. Little Feng Sun. The others didn't realize whom Feng Wu was talking to at first, but when they turned around they were shocked to see young Lord Feng, the son of General Feng. Although families weren't taken into account here in Peace Grassland, and everybody earned their ranks in the same way, one's background wouldn't really be ignored. He was General Feng's son. Wait, what did Feng Wu just call young Lord Feng? Little Feng Sun. She sounded as if she was talking to a kid, but young Lord Feng was the heir of an important family. Surely he would get angry. While the others were worried for Feng Wu, Feng Sun rushed to her side. Xiao Wu, what are you doing here? Feng Sun looked at his sister in excitement. Whenever he ran into his sister, she was always so pretty. She's my sister. Mine, thought Feng Sun. The others couldn't believe the proud look on Feng Sun's face. Senior Sister Lan and Lieutenant Colonel Zhang's faces darkened. Not only did Feng Wu find so many badges, she was also so close to young Lord Feng. How did that happen? Jiang had been trying to make his way into the Crown Prince's social circle, but his efforts had been futile so far. Chapter 3130 She has enough points left to. 3130 She has enough points left to. Jiang had been trying to join the Crown Prince's social circle, but couldn't find his way in. That was because the Crown Prince didn't socialize with random people. Jiang's plan was to introduce himself to Feng Sun instead. If he could become the young lord's man, he would indirectly become His Royal Highness's man. For that, Jiang approached Helian Zheong. Who was Helian Zheong? He was a colonel and a level 7 spiritual king. He was very capable, and Jiang had been fawning on him. Helian Zheong's grandfather was Elder Helian. Jiang was trying to become familiar with Elder Helian through Helian Zheong. From there, he would make his way to Feng Sun and eventually reach the Crown Prince. He wanted to slowly make his way up the social ladder like a snail. He didn't mind taking longer since it was his life's goal. Feng Sun had just shown up. Jiang had been trying to become familiar with young Lord Feng. However, he saw Feng Wu and Feng Sun standing together with their arms around each other's shoulders. They seemed so close. Jiang felt a prickling sensation on his back. He wondered if Feng Wu had gotten to young Lord Feng first. The idea made his face lose all color because he had just offended Feng Wu. He had to make that grudge go away. Jiang racked his brain and soon formed a plan. By the looks of it, Feng Wu should be one of young Lord Feng's women. He knew what to do. He hurried off to make preparations. Meanwhile, Feng Wu introduced Feng Sun to everyone. This is Feng Sun. He was the one who picked up all the badges. If you want to thank somebody, thank him. Ask him whatever you want. After that, Feng Wu left Feng Sun with the crowd while she went to Ningjingqiu to redeem her points. She still remembered the exchange rate. A Dongsang Major's badge was worth 600 points. A Dongsang Lieutenant Colonel's badge was worth 3,600 points. A Dongsang Colonel's badge was worth 12,800 points. A Dongsang Senior Colonel's badge was worth 48,000 points. After some calculations, Feng Wu had 1,000,000 points in total. Ning Jingqiu's face almost turned green. He stared at Feng Wu. Guess what? Even the elders aren't as rich as you are. Feng Wu said, Why are you so surprised? I have a good brother. Ning Jingqiu was silent for a while before asking, Are you sure you only want to be a colonel? With your points, you can easily become a senior colonel. The points also had a fixed exchange rate. To graduate, one needed 5,000 points. A major needed 6,000 points, a lieutenant colonel 36,000 points, a colonel 128,000 points, and a senior colonel 480,000 points. That was to say, one needed 10 Dongsang badges to exchange for one Junwu military rank of the same level. Feng Wu was also a little astonished by her 1,000,000 points. She tilted her head and gave it some thought. Of course, she could become a senior colonel, but she was only a level 5 spiritual king, and a senior colonel's mission could get her killed. The thought made Feng Wu shake her head. A colonel will do. I can handle that rank, but anything higher will be too difficult. I only have so many teeth. Huh. Ning Jingqiu couldn't understand what she meant, but he knew Feng Wu only wanted to become a colonel. Before long, Feng Wu was officially a colonel, and her shoulder badge was so handsome. She still had ample points left. There was enough to. Chapter 3132 What's the girl's background? 3132 What's the girl's background? He could only tell Feng Wu in a hurry, We're colonels, and the person in charge of our quarters is Yang Jihu, a senior colonel. You should report to him. Feng Wu rubbed her dry eyes. I see. Go back to your work. I'll be all right. Feng Sun was still a little worried. Are you sure? Feng Wu said, "Yes, I'm sure." Feng Sun couldn't stop worrying. Yang Jihu is a capable man, but he can be narrow-minded at times, and he's keen on saving face. Just watch out for his ego, and you'll be fine. Feng Wu was so sleepy that she could hardly keep her eyes open. She gave Feng Sun a little shove. "Just go," Feng Sun said. "You can't go in without a key. Go to Yang Jihu first." Feng Wu nodded. Feng Sun's team was waiting for him, and he had to leave. As for Feng Wu, the door was locked with inscriptions, and ordinary people couldn't open it. However, Feng Wu took out the phoenix pen and casually drew something in the air. "Open." The door opened as commanded. The house was about 100 square meters in size with a wooden interior. There wasn't much decor, but the room was spotless. The floor was bullywood as well. The only furniture was a bed and a table. There was nothing else. The bed had a clean, white sheet on it. Feng Wu didn't feel so sleepy until she saw the bed. She rubbed her eyes, went to the bed, and threw herself on the pillow. She was so sleepy. She fell asleep as soon as she closed her eyes. Yang Jihu was in his office. He was dumbfounded when the exchange center notified him that a new colonel was coming. Why was there suddenly a new colonel? He had never heard of that name before. Yang Jihu waited and waited, but the girl with that name never arrived. 3 days passed. Yang Jihu didn't know what to do. He was still holding the key to that empty house. Did that mean Feng Wu was missing? Yang Jihu frowned and wondered who that Feng Wu was. Where did she go? He decided to take a look at the girl's file. However, her file? "I don't have it," the officer in charge of the files told Yang Jihu. Yang Jihu asked, "How's that possible? Is it a top secret?" The officer was his good friend, so he told Yang Jihu, "Talk to Elder Heng. He may have the answer." Elder Heng was Elder Wu and Elder Mo's colleague, and was also under Elder Helian's command. Yang Jihu was very curious, so he went to see Elder Heng. "Who?" Elder Heng was happily playing with an essence crystal. He immediately straightened his back when Yang Jihu mentioned the name. "A girl named Feng Wu," Yang Jihu complained. "I don't know what her background is, but she suddenly became a colonel. I never saw her name in the lieutenant colonel's quarters." Yang Jihu was quite talkative around his superior. He went on and on. "I went to the major's quarter, but she wasn't there. I even looked through the files of the elders, but none of them have that surname. Elder Heng, that's so strange." Elder Heng looked at Yang Jihu as if he was an idiot. Chapter 31, 33, 31, 33 Feng Wu? 31-33 Feng Wu. Elder Heng found his young subordinate quite foolish. "Don't you know who Feng Wu is?" Yang Jihu said. "Should I know that name?" Elder Heng asked, "Do you really not know who she is?" Yang Jihu was even more bewildered. He had only been in the Dayless Woods for 2 weeks. Why did it feel like he had come back to a different world? Seeing that Yang Jihu really had no idea, Elder Heng told him. As for who Feng Wu is, he simply showed Yang Jihu the fist-sized essence crystal. Yang Jihu was confused. Aren't essence crystals usually the size of a fingernail? Why is this one so big? Elder Heng said, "It's from our mine." Yang Jihu didn't believe him. "How can that be? Our essence crystals always have a yellow tint and are of inferior quality. None of them are this big." Elder Heng laughed. "That was before. Your information is outdated." Yang Jihu said, "What?" Elder Heng said, "The Imperial College has a new essence crystal mine now." He was so pleased that he couldn't stop smiling. Yang Jihu was astonished. The news of the discovery of a new essence crystal mine could shake the entire empire. How could he not have heard it? A new essence crystal mine? Did Elder Helian find it? Yang Jihu lowered his voice. Elder Heng said, "It's not a new mine. We got it from them." He pointed in the direction of the military academy. He was usually quite serious, but Yang Jihu was one of his own, so he didn't try to hide his feelings and laughed heartily. Yang Jihu didn't understand. He didn't get Elder Heng's hint. Elder Heng finally put it in plain words. It's not a newly discovered mine. We took it from the military academy. It's mine number 3. Yang Jihu stopped laughing and stared at Elder Heng. Sir, that's not funny at all. Please don't make fun of me. Elder Heng looked at him. Do you think I'm joking? Yang Jihu said, Of course. Elder Heng said seriously, I'm not joking. Yang Jihu knew Elder Heng was telling the truth when he became serious. Hence, really? Is that true? Yang Jihu almost jumped to his feet. Why was the military academy so generous? Why did they give us that mine? Did the general give that order? Elder Heng shook his head with a smile. It was the work of a genius in our school. A genius. Yang Jihu thought about the talented members of his school. Was it Feng Sun? Xian Yi? Elder Heng shook his head. Was it Yen Han? Elder Heng said, Yen Han has talent in inscriptions, but she has nothing to do with this. Yang Jihu asked, Was it Wang Zhaola? Elder Heng said, The answer is still no. Yang Jihu asked, Who was it then? I'm running out of options. Elder Heng said, You mentioned that name when you came here. Yang Jihu was confused. Whose name did he mention when he came? I didn't mention any name. Elder Heng looked at his capable subordinate in resignation. Weren't you looking for Feng Wu's file? Yes, I was. Yang Jihu finally realized what Elder Heng meant, and he stared at the latter in astonishment. Feng Wu! As a senior colonel, he shouldn't reveal his emotions so freely, however. Chapter 31-34 31-34 She's jealous. 31-34 She's jealous. He was shocked beyond description. Elder Heng smiled and nodded at him. Yang Jihu was shocked and confused. I was only away for half a month. Why does it feel like the world has turned upside down? Who on earth is this Feng Wu? Elder Heng chuckled. I don't know the answer. What did you say you wanted? Her file. I want to see her file. Her file? I want to see that, too, but I can't. Elder Helion took it away, saying it was top secret. Yang Jihu asked, Can it be that important? But... He suddenly turned pale, and Elder Heng looked at him in bewilderment. Yang Jihu frowned and told Elder Heng why he was after the file. Feng Wu has become a colonel, but it has been 3 days, and she still hasn't reported to me. Elder Heng said, 3 days? How can she be absent for 3 days? Did you look for her? Yang Jihu shook his head. That thought never crossed his mind. He had only wanted to teach the disobedient newcomer a lesson. Elder Heng said, That's not good. She's Elder Hulian's favorite now. I also heard she's somehow connected to the Crown Prince. People have been saying she's His Royal Highness's future wife. What? Yang Jihu's knees nearly buckled. He looked at Elder Heng, almost bursting into tears. Elder Heng said anxiously, Why did you wait so long? Yang Jihu really wanted to cry. Nobody told him she could be the Crown Prince's future wife. If he had known, he wouldn't have waited 3 days before coming here. Elder Heng said, Don't tell other people about her relationship with the Crown Prince. His Royal Highness may not like it. Yang Jihu said, I know. What should I do now? Elder Heng said, Find her now. Yang Jihu said, Yes, of course. I'm on it. The Crown Prince's future wife had won a mine for Imperial College. What kind of amazing girl was she? Yang Jihu told his deputy and everybody in the colonel's quarters to look for Feng Wu together. They had to find her. Deputy Su didn't mind because it was part of his job, but the others weren't as willing. Yen Han was particularly unhappy. She was a capable girl from an influential family. Her grandfather was a member of the elders, and she was an expert in inscriptions. Here in the colonel's quarters, where there were only a few female members, she was treated like a princess. Usually, Yang Ji would treat her differently, but when he passed her just now, he walked so fast that he only had time to stuff a stack of papers in her hands and shout, "Find Feng Wu, now!" Yen Han almost burst into tears at that moment. She was supposed to be the princess of the colonel's quarter. Who was this Feng Wu? Why was everybody making such a big deal about her? When Yen Han saw the portrait in her hands, she was filled with astonishment, rage and jealousy. She touched every inch of Feng Wu's portrait. She had never seen such a beautiful face before. Even in the portrait, the girl seemed to have flawless skin. Yen Han was so dumbfounded that she stood there for a long while. She can't look like this. No one can be this pretty. It's not possible, she told herself. Chapter 31-35 31-35 Who did it? 31-35 Who did it? Yen Han was so jealous that she almost cried. Yang Jihu had run past her, but he turned around and yelled at her again. Yen Han, don't just stand here. Find little Feng Wu. Yang Jihu ran off after that. Yen Han was speechless. Little Feng Wu. Why did he use such an endearing name? He hadn't even met her yet. Would he use some more ridiculous names when Feng Wu showed up? The boys in the colonel's quarters usually called Yen Han Precious Yen. The thought made Yen Han even more jealous. She threw Feng Wu's portrait on the ground and stepped on it. So what if you have a pretty face? I'll step on it. You don't know how well connected I am. I won't let you steal my show. Yang Jihu didn't know Yen Han would react that way. Right now, he was leading a group of people to look everywhere for Feng Wu. Deputy Su led the first group to search the Dayless Wood. Wang Zhaola led the second group to search the entire colonel's quarters. Yang Hong led the third group to search the rest of the fortress. The fourth group, in other words, all of the colonel's quarters, was on the move. Meanwhile, Feng Wu had no idea what was going on. She was still fast asleep. Yang Jihu went to Elder Helion for help. Elder Helion said, "What? Xiao Wu is missing." He looked like he was going to lose his mind. "We can't let anything happen to her, or the Crown Prince will kill us all." Moreover, she was also a semi-divine medicine refiner who could outwit Elder Dongfang. Can it be the military academy's doing? Elder Helion wanted to question Elder Dongfang. Of course, the military academy heard the commotion in Imperial College's section. Elder Dongfang's house was right across the road from Elder Helion's. Right now, she was feeding medicine to Dongfang Ziyun, who was still bedridden. "Aunt, it's so noisy outside," Dongfang Ziyun said weakly. She could hear Elder Helion's angry voice. Elder Dongfang chuckled. "You wouldn't say that if you knew what's happening out there." Dongfang Ziyun wasn't interested at all. She lay dispiritedly in bed, and could only think of the person she hated the most. Feng Wu! Feng Wu! Feng Wu! She closed her eyes to hide the hatred in them. Feng Wu had injured her and stolen the essence crystal mine. Not only was Dongfang Ziyun utterly humiliated, the people of the military academy had also started hating her. Even her aunt lost some popularity for helping her. Dongfang Ziyun would never forgive Feng Wu. "Feng Wu is missing," Elder Dongfang whispered in Dongfang Ziyun's ear. Only a moment ago, Dongfang Ziyun said she wasn't interested, but she bolted up when she heard this and almost knocked over the bowl in Elder Dongfang's hand. She asked anxiously, "Aunt, what did you just say? What was that?" Elder Dongfang smiled. "I heard Feng Wu's missing. Did you do it?" Dongfang Ziyun's first reaction was the same as Elder Helion's. Elder Dongfang shook her head. She had thought about it, but now wasn't the right time. The military academy had just lost their mine. If she took action now, she would come under suspicion right away. Therefore, she decided to wait until more people disliked Feng Wu. She could do it when Feng Wu was in the Dayless Woods. Chapter 3136, 3136, Are you a fairy from the moon? 3136, Are you a fairy from the moon? Dongfang Xian asked. Who could it be then? Who did it? Elder Dongfang said indifferently, Why do you care? Dongfang Xian realized she was right. Yes. Why should she care? Somebody out there did it. Ha ha. That's karma. Finally, the time has come for her to be punished for what she did. Dongfang Xian said coldly. At that moment, Feng Wu had no idea everybody was looking for her. She slowly woke up when she heard the noise outside. What was that about? Why wouldn't they let her sleep? Feng Wu rubbed her eyes, yawned and finally opened her eyes. She rolled around in bed, finally feeling she had rested enough. She gathered her strength, but remained lying down. Her eyes were bright and clear once more. Because the house was made of wood, she could see the light flashing outside. Something seemed to be rushing back and forth outside, moving unbelievably fast. Was it a ghost? Intrigued, Feng Wu got out of bed and went to open the door. She was right. So many people were running around outside. Feng Wu rested her elbows on the railing and cupped her chin as she watched them curiously. Were they looking for something? Somebody was digging in the ground. Somebody was checking a bird's nest. Feng Wu thought they were looking for some spiritual pet. She ran down the stairs and asked the teenager who was looking into the bird's nest, Hey, what are you looking for? Can I help you with anything? All these people were wearing colonel shoulder badges. Since Feng Wu was new here, she decided to make friends with them and blend in. The teenager searching the bird's nest was quite capable as well. He was called Yuxiu. He was still looking into the nest when he casually replied, Do you not know? Did you just come back from the Dayless Woods? Something really strange has happened. It was too dark to see one's face clearly, and the teenager was looking into the nest the whole time, so he didn't realize who he was talking to. He thought Feng Wu was just another fellow colonel. Feng Wu's eyes twinkled in the dark. Strange? How strange? Tell me about it. Yuxiu said grumpily, Somebody disappeared from our quarters, and Yang Jihu is leading the search party. We've done nothing but look for that person tonight. Yang Jihu is a short-tempered man. I'm sure when he finds that person, he'll skin him or her alive. A search party? Who are you looking for? I'm very good at finding missing people. Feng Wu rolled up her sleeves, ready to impress her new colleague. Feng Wu, said Yuxiu. Yes. Feng Wu wondered how this teenager knew her name. Feng Wu. Yuxiu grew impatient. What was this girl doing? He turned around and stared at Feng Wu. I'm telling you, the person we're looking for is called Feng Wu. Feng Wu was speechless. Under the moonlight, the girl's skin was flawless and as fair as the first snow. Her features were exquisite, and her beauty was beyond description. She looked like the best work of nature itself. Yuxiu's brain froze for a moment. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Are you a fairy? He stared at Feng Wu. Are you a fairy from the moon? Chapter 3137, 3137, More Than Perfect. 3137, More Than Perfect. Feng Wu looked perplexed. Yuxiu said, You. A thought suddenly struck him, and he took a portrait out of his chest pocket and looked at it under the moonlight. Holy crap! The painting hadn't made Feng Wu prettier than she really was. Everybody thought the painting was a beautified version of the girl. When they searched for her, they were expecting to see a girl that only resembled the painting by 70%. If the girl in the painting had a score of 10, they thought Feng Wu herself would only be a 7. However, Yuxiu realized the girl in front of him was at least a 12. No painting could depict how beautiful she was. Are you Feng Wu? Yuxiu stared at her. Feng Wu nodded. Yes, I am. Yuxiu shouted, Guys! Over here! I found her. I found Feng Wu. His voice resonated in the quiet living quarters. Feng Wu looked at him in bewilderment and had a bad feeling about this. Was she the reason for all the commotion? Everybody heard Yu Xiu's voice. Immediately, they all rushed in their direction. Apart from Deputy Su and his group, who had gone to the Dayless Woods, everybody was here. They surrounded Feng Wu. Feng Wu looked at them, and they looked back at her. In the moonlight, she was as beautiful as a fairy. No one could bring themselves to tell her off. Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong led the second and third groups respectively. They looked at each other. Both wanted to step forward, but neither had the courage. Just then, Yang Jihu arrived. He glowered at Feng Wu. Feng Wu only gave him an innocent glance. Now that Yang Jihu knew Feng Wu's background, he didn't dare do anything to her. However, he was all about saving face, so he put on a serious look. He stared at her. Feng Wu! Feng Wu said, yes. Yang Jihu said, what took you so long? Where have you been? Everybody has been looking for you. Feng Wu said, I. Before she could finish, Yang Jihu said impatiently, follow me. He put his hands behind his back and led the way. Seeing that Feng Wu was still standing there, he shouted, I said follow me. The entire colonel's quarters knew that Yang Jihu was a level 9 spiritual king, and everybody was afraid of him. His nickname was White Tiger. Hearing his bellow, everybody cringed and held their breath. Yu Xiu was worried about Feng Wu. Yang Jihu was angry. What would happen to the fairy? Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong looked at each other, and were both worried about Feng Wu. She couldn't be older than 15. Yang Jihu was like an angry tiger when he lost his temper. The girl wouldn't be frightened to tears, would she? Dismissed. Yang Jihu shouted at his subordinate. Yu Xiu summoned up his courage. Sir, about Feng Wu. Shut up. Yang Jihu shouted at Yu Xiu. His voice sounded like a thunderclap, and everybody cringed. The white tiger was so scary. He looked like he could kill somebody. Everybody gave the pretty girl sympathetic look. Only one person was smiling in the crowd. It was none other than Yan Han herself. Chapter 31-38 31-38 Skip 2 ranks. 31-38 Skip 2 ranks. Yan Han almost cried when she saw Feng Wu. However, she felt very relieved after Yang Jihu scolded the girl. So what if Feng Wu is pretty? Mr. Yang still shouts at her. He doesn't care about your background. You've offended him. You're doomed. Jealousy could blind a person. When Yan Han didn't feel threatened, she was still an arrogant girl, but her pride was within reason. But now, all she could think of was defeating the beautiful Feng Wu. She wondered how her colleagues felt about Feng Wu. Hence, she put on a smile so that the others wouldn't see how displeased she was. Feng Sun and Xian Yi were the most brilliant members in the colonel's quarters. Both were young lords, and both were the crown prince's close friends. Yan Han had been trying to make friends with them but never had the chance. She was glad they weren't here. Otherwise, she was sure they would be infatuated with Feng Wu. The thought made Yan Han heave a sigh of relief. She set a goal for herself: get rid of Feng Wu before Feng Sun came back. Apart from Feng Sun and Xian Yi, Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong were the most outstanding colonels. They always followed Feng Sun and Xian Yi around and acted like their lackeys. Helian Zheong, the level 7 spiritual king, was also an important member because his grandfather was Elder Helian. However, he was in the Dayless Woods at the moment. Yan Han calmed down and ran after Wang Zhaola with a smile. Zhaola, Hong, wait for me. Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong were about to leave, and they looked at each other when they heard Yan Han's voice. Did Yan Han just address them as Zhaola and Hong? That didn't seem right. Yan Han always raised her chin and gave them sidelong glances when she talked to them before, and they were only Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong to her. She was an inscription master and a rather good one, which made her rather arrogant because everybody had to ask for her help when the inscriptions on their weapons needed repairing. The change in her attitude was very strange. Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong turned around and looked at Yan Han. "What is it, Yan Han?" Unlike other people, Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong always addressed her by her full name. Yan Han was very polite this time. She smiled at Wang Zhaola and asked, "Are you going back? Let me join you." Of course, the two young men couldn't say no. Yan Han walked between Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong. After exchanging a few pleasantries, she quickly changed the subject. "What do you think about Feng Wu?" Wang Zhaola asked. "What?" Yan Han said, "Do you think she's pretty? I'm told she's only a level 2 spiritual king." A level 2 spiritual king? Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong were both surprised. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Yan Han said seriously. "I've asked around. Do you know what I've learned? Feng Wu was only a student before she became a colonel." "What?" Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong were genuinely astonished. A student, and she suddenly became a colonel. How many ranks did she skip? Major, lieutenant colonel, and colonel. She skipped the first 2 ranks. Chapter 31-39 31-39 Your Power. 31-39 Your Power. She had skipped 2 ranks. Who on earth was she? Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong looked at Yan Han in astonishment. Yan Han was pleased to see their reaction and decided to say as many bad things about Feng Wu as she could. She smiled bitterly. "How do you think that's possible? I've asked my grandfather. Feng Wu doesn't have any relatives among the elders." "You've asked your grandfather already?" asked Wang Zhaola. Yan Han hadn't. If she had, she wouldn't have dared to offend Feng Wu. However, she looked at Wang Zhaola and said seriously, "Yes, I've asked my grandfather. Feng Wu doesn't have any connections. I think she probably gained all those points with her pretty face." "Her face? Do you mean?" Yan Han gave them a, "you know what I mean" look before walking past them. She then went to talk to other people. Wang Zhaola and Yang Hong frowned at each other. Somehow, they felt Yan Han was keeping something from them. What a strange girl. Meanwhile, Yang Jihu had taken Feng Wu to his office. Feng Wu felt rather guilty when she realized the entire colonel's quarters had been turned upside down because of her, so she lowered her head and stood there, waiting to be told off. "Sit." Feng Wu thought she was going to be punished, when the angry-looking man told her to sit down. Feng Wu looked at him in bewilderment. "Please take a seat." Yang Jihu gestured at Feng Wu. All right, Feng Wu did as she was told. Under the bright light, Yang Jihu could finally see her face clearly. She was prettier than a fairy. No wonder the crown prince was tempted. Yang Jihu cleared his throat. He knew he couldn't let it show because Elder Hellion had told him to keep it a secret. Feng Wu tilted her head and looked at the colonel known as the White Tiger in bewilderment. He had been so impatient a moment ago, but somehow, he had become a little more friendly. Yang Jihu was trying to figure out what to do with the girl. He asked, "How old are you?" Feng Wu said, 14.5. Yang Jihu said, "What? 14.5. He had been swaying back and forth in his chair, but almost jumped to his feet when he heard this. A 14-year-old colonel. This had to be a joke. However, the Crown Prince was her patron, so be it. The Crown Prince himself had a higher rank when he was only 10. Yang Jihu asked, "Your cultivation level?" After some thought, he added, "You don't need to tell me if you don't want to. How capable could a pretty 14-year-old be?" Yang Jihu didn't expect to get an answer. Most of the colonels were between level 6 to level 8 at the spiritual king stage. Of course, there were exceptions. Yan Han hadn't reached level 6 yet, but she still became a colonel because of her expertise in inscriptions. Feng Wu asked earnestly, "Do you mean my actual level or my combat ability?" Yang Jihu asked, "Is there a difference?" Feng Wu gave it some thought. I'm a level 5 spiritual king, but I can defeat level 6 spiritual kings in actual combat. Yang Jihu almost spat out his tea. You? A level 5 spiritual king? And you can defeat level 6 spiritual kings? Chapter 3140 Girl, you're bragging. 3140 Girl, you're bragging. Yang Jihu studied the girl carefully. He had never heard a girl brag about herself with such a straight face. Yang Jihu tried to pick the right words so that he wouldn't hurt her feelings. Forget tea. Do you have any other specialties? Yang Jihu asked. Surely, a girl would have some skills like singing or dancing. Feng Wu tilted her head and asked, Do you want to hear about everything I know? Yang Jihu slapped his thigh. Of course. Tell me everything. Feng Wu said, Well, I have medical skills. Yang Jihu's eyes lit up. Medical skills? Good. Girls had nimble hands, so she could treat other people's wounds in the future. Are you a medicine refiner? Yang Jihu asked carefully so that he wouldn't hurt the girl. Yes, I am, Feng Wu said solemnly. I know a few things about medicine, and I'm a semi-divine medicine refiner now. Don't worry. I'll become a divine medicine refiner in a few years. Thump! Yang Jihu's forehead bumped into his desk so hard that he almost cracked his head open. Many people already knew that, but they were mostly high-ranking officials. For instance, Elder Hellion and the elders who had gone to the Dayless Woods. However, they wouldn't gossip with the junior officers, so the news had never spread. As a result, Yang Jihu never heard about it. Yang Jihu pointed at Feng Wu, trying to say something. He had been trying hard not to hurt the girl's feelings, but she wouldn't stop bragging. He didn't know what to do. Seeing that Feng Wu wanted to continue, he waved her off. Let's forget about being a medicine refiner. Do you have any other hobbies? Feng Wu said, Well, I know formations. I'm a formation master. That could be very useful. Yang Jihu asked excitedly, Are you? That's great. We need formation masters when fighting the Dongsang Kingdom. Do you know who Elder Mei is? He's our best formation master. I'm sure you're too young to know that. How foolish of me. Do you know what level Elder Mei is? Level 8. Feng Wu said, I see. Yang Jihu said, I'll have Elder Heng take you to Elder Mei. He can give you a few instructions and you'll improve a lot. But he's always busy, so I don't think he'll have time. What's your level now? If she was too weak, maybe Elder Mei wouldn't help her, despite her relationship with the Crown Prince. Feng Wu said, I think I'm higher than level 8. Yang Jihu coughed. Feng Wu gave him an innocent look. Yang Jihu didn't know what to do. The girl was stunning, but she was too good at bragging. He couldn't take it anymore. Yang Jihu said, Do you know anything else? Feng Wu said, I know inscriptions too. Yang Jihu said, Are you going to tell me you're above level 8 in inscriptions too? Chapter 3141 It's Your Face. 3141 It's Your Face. Feng Wu was amazed. How did you know? What else could Yang Jihu do? You. He wanted to say something else, but he waved at her in the end. You can go now. Feng Wu asked, Are you done? Yang Jihu said, Yes, I'm done. You can go now. You'll be working in Team 2, and Wang Zhaola will be your captain. Go on. Feng Wu said, I see. She went back to her living quarters. She noticed many people were giving her strange looks. Some even talked behind her back. I heard she sleep around. Level 2 spiritual king. Her only way. She doesn't deserve. Feng Wu frowned. Somebody must have been making up stories about her again. She would usually ignore them since with her capability, she would soon rise to a new level. However, she was very hungry and very grumpy now, and she couldn't stand such nonsense. Two girls walking ahead of her were talking about her. Feng Wu walked up to them and patted them on the shoulder. Hey you! Female members of the colonel's quarters spent most of their time cultivating, and they didn't look as pretty as the others. The two young women were at least 20, and it had been a while since they graduated. They hadn't been taking care of their skin, which was a little sallow, and their pores were rather large. When they stood side by side with Feng Wu, the comparison was very cruel. The two women were Han Lu and Gao Ye. Both colonels were level 6 spiritual kings. When they saw Feng Wu's young, pretty face, they felt rather defeated, and their faces darkened. Han Lu asked grimly, "Who are you talking to?" Feng Wu rested her hands on her waist. "I'm talking to whoever's been talking about me behind my back." She didn't try to keep her voice down, and the colonels all had sharp ears. Not only did the passers-by hear her, many people in their rooms also heard her as well. At their level, they only focused on their cultivation, so they usually worked in their rooms and ignored the commotion outside. However, everybody who wasn't cultivating turned to see what was happening. Han Lu smirked when she saw how unrestrained the newcomer was. What did you hear?" Feng Wu snorted. "You were saying bad things about me. Was I wrong?" Han Lu said, "Yes, I said things. Why can't I? Guys, she's Feng Wu. She's only a level 2 spiritual king, but she's already a colonel. Isn't that ridiculous?" Gao Ye chimed in. "That's right. Why can't we talk about you? Our questions are reasonable. Why don't you tell us how you, a level 2 spiritual king, became a colonel? Is it because of your capability? No, it's because of your face. A level 2 spiritual king." Many people's opinion of Feng Wu changed. She was only a level 2 spiritual king? That made sense. She couldn't be more than 15. At her age, she had done a great job to reach that level. Chapter 3142 Her red skirt flapped in the wind. 3142 Her red skirt flapped in the wind. The girl shouldn't have come to the colonel's quarters. She didn't belong here. Seeing that no one said anything, Han Lu grew more arrogant. She sneered at Feng Wu, despising the girl for using her beauty to get what she wanted. "You've fallen quite low for your young age," Han Lu continued. "I'm saying this for your own good. Be grateful." Gao Ye tugged at Han Lu's sleeve. "Let's go. She's so young, but she's already corrupt. Don't waste your energy on her. She won't listen to you." Wang Zhaola didn't want to get involved, but the more he thought about what Yen Han said, the more uneasy he felt. He had come out of his room as soon as he heard the commotion outside. Seeing Han Lu and Gao Ye picking on the new girl, Wang Zhaola frowned. Were the two veterans bullying the newcomer? "What are you doing?" Wang Zhaola glared at Han Lu. "Are you bullying our new colleague?" "Me? Bullying her?" Han Lu snorted. "Wang Zhaola, are you taking her side because she's pretty? She's only a level 2 spiritual king. Why does she think she can be a colonel like us? I won't have it. We worked so hard to gain badges and essence crystals. We earned every single point we redeemed. We shed tears and blood for everything we earned. Rising to our current position nearly cost us our lives. What about her? Her capability is a joke. She has the same rank as us because she's pretty, she's a sweet talker, and she doesn't mind sleeping around. That's why she's here. Do you think that's fair?" One had to admit what Han Lu said was quite contagious. When she shouted at the top of her lungs, many people around her sympathized with her. They were all from ordinary families and had only earned this life because they had worked hard for it. However, this girl had everything handed to her on a plate because of her pretty face. Even Wang Zhaola hesitated a little. Feng Wu looked even calmer than usual, and her voice didn't sound disturbed either. She stared at Han Lu and asked, "Who told you I'm a level 2 spiritual king?" Han Lu smirked. "That's not important. What's important is I'm already doing you a favor by calling you a level 2 spiritual king. She never finished her sentence. Suddenly, Feng Wu changed at her like a pouncing tiger. She clenched her fist and punched Han Lu in the face. The noise sounded like a meteorite crashing into the ground. Thump! Ah! Shit! No one knew how Feng Wu did it. All they saw was Feng Wu charging forward and exerting an irresistible force. The impact made everybody stumble backward. Han Lu flew back when the fist hit her. The force destroyed all the plants she crashed into, and she didn't stop until she was hundreds of meters away. Everyone was speechless. Their eyes widened. Even Han Lu didn't know what had happened. Gao Ye was the first to react. Han Lu! She screamed and ran to Han Lu's side. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was also walking toward Han Lu. The hem of her red skirt flapped in the wind. Chapter 3143 The Crown Prince's Favorite Girl. 3143 The Crown Prince's Favorite Girl. There was no expression on her beautiful face. Her black eyes could chill one to the bone. Wang Zhaola shivered when he looked at Feng Wu. The girl was a little scary. Feng Wu didn't stop. Instead, she slowly marched toward Han Lu. Han Lu lay in Gao Ye's arms and stared at Feng Wu as the latter moved closer. When she tried to say something, she spat out a mouthful of blood. The others followed Feng Wu, but they were also scared of her murderous energy. Yan Han's stomach lurched when she saw Feng Wu's expressionless face. This girl. How could she defeat Han Lu? Han Lu was a level 6 spiritual king. Yan Han felt a little dizzy. She put a hand over her heart and found it beating fast. Feng Wu's red dress looked like it was on fire, and her murderous energy kept people from moving closer. What are you doing? Gao Ye saw a shadow approaching, and when she looked up, Feng Wu was in front of her. Gao Ye panicked. Feng Wu knew there was no need to talk to this woman. She picked Gao Ye up without another word. Gao Ye screamed in a fluster. Feng Wu smirked. Picking up Gao Ye with one hand, she punched Gao Ye's stomach with the other. Did you call me a level 2 spiritual king? I'm only a pretty face, aren't I? You also said I sleep around, didn't you? Keep talking now. Why did you stop? With each question, Feng Wu punched Gao Ye once. Each time, Gao Ye thought she was going to faint. A level 2 spiritual king. Bullshit. No level 2 spiritual king could do this to a level 6 spiritual king. Everybody was watching Feng Wu. Somehow, it felt like Feng Wu was punching them as well. Before long, it began to rain. The pouring rain soon became a storm. Everybody was soaked, but no one dared walk away. Feng Wu was still punching Gao Ye. Do you know how important a girl's reputation is? What you said could erase all her hard work. You're so evil. I'm gonna kill you. She punched Gao Ye over and over again. Gao Ye was spitting out blood and almost lost consciousness. Yan Han's heart sank when she saw this. She stiffened and a chill ran down her spine. Somehow, it felt like Feng Wu was punching her. Who told you I'm a level 2 spiritual king? Feng Wu asked the key question. Tell me. It was Yan. Gao Ye fainted before finishing the sentence. Someone arrived at that moment. It was Yang Jihu. His eyes popped when he saw this. Feng Wu's bragging had given him a headache. He thought he would skip his practice and call it a night. Before his head hit the pillow, Wang Zhaola rushed into his room and told him that Feng Wu was fighting someone. If it were any other person, Yang Jihu wouldn't bother, but it was Feng Wu. She was the crown prince's favorite girl. The girl was only a level 2 spiritual king. OMG. Yang Jihu suddenly wasn't sleepy anymore. Chapter 3144 She wasn't fighting. 3144 She wasn't fighting. He couldn't imagine what would happen if the girl was injured. Yang Jihu was usually a very stern colonel, but now, He threw on some clothes and rushed out of his room. When he finally arrived at the scene and pushed through the crowd, what did he see? A person was leaning against a bent tree with blood all over her clothes. Her eyes were filled with fear. That was Han Lu. Another person was standing there, holding something in her hand. No, it wasn't a thing. It was a person. Feng Wu was punching Gao Ye so hard that the latter was barely breathing. Yang Jihu then looked at Feng Wu. The girl looked so intimidating in her red dress. She turned around and smiled at Yang Jihu. Yang Jihu felt like he was under the gaze of an eagle or a wolf. How frightening! There was a smear of blood on her fair cheek, and some had even splashed onto her eyelashes. She looked as scary as a ghost. Feng Wu! Yang Jihu bellowed. Hearing his voice, Feng Wu seemed to wake up from a trance-like state. She swayed and fell to the ground. Yang Jihu managed to catch her in time. However, Gao Ye, who was in Feng Wu's hand, fell to the ground. Yang Jihu didn't know what to do. He yelled at Wang Zhaola, "Help Feng Wu!" Only then did the others seem to wake up. Some went to fetch a medicine refiner, and some helped the wounded. However, when they looked at one another, they all saw fear in each other's eyes. Feng Wu's outburst had successfully intimidated everybody. Her actions had been more useful than any words. A level 2 spiritual king. Feng Wu had proven she could beat up a level 6 spiritual king. If one had to be a level 6 spiritual king to become a colonel, now that Feng Wu had demonstrated she could beat up a level 6 spiritual king, no one would think she had come here based solely on her pretty face. She was ferocious. When the others thought about how Feng Wu had turned Gao Ye into a punching bag, they were all chilled to the bone. As for Yen Han, she had been frightened to tears, and no one knew where she was. A medicine refiner. Everybody thought Dongfang Ziyun was the most capable medicine refiner in the fortress. Therefore, Yang Jihu told Yang Hong to get Dongfang Ziyun here to check on Feng Wu. He didn't want anything to happen to the girl. While they were waiting for Dongfang Ziyun to come, Yang Jihu finally had time to ask what happened. Wang Zhaola hesitated before describing the entire incident. Yang Jihu was astonished. She can fight 2 level 6 spiritual kings at once. Wang Zhaola felt that wasn't the most important thing. Shouldn't Yang Jihu be asking how Feng Wu managed to beat up those 2 people? Yang Jihu stared at Wang Zhaola. Is that true? Did she fight those 2 people together? Wang Zhaola squeezed his nose bridge. To be more precise, she beat them both up. Yang Jihu said, "Isn't that what I meant?" Wang Zhaola said, "It's not, Mr. Yang. Feng Wu didn't have a fight. It was a one-sided beating. She could crush those 2 people with one finger. They couldn't deliver even one strike before she beat them up. Han Lu went flying all the way over there, and she turned Gao Ye into a punching bag." Chapter 3145 3145 The Starving, Unconscious Girl. 3145 The Starving, Unconscious Girl. Mr. Yang, exactly what is Miss Feng Wu's level? Wang Zhaola asked curiously. Yang Jihu didn't know the answer either, so he said, "Why hasn't Miss Dongfang arrived? Tell her to hurry up." Just then, Yang Hong arrived with a little old man. Seeing that it wasn't Dongfang Ziyun, Yang Jihu frowned and stared at Yang Hong. Yang Hong smiled bitterly. "I went to see her and politely asked for her help, but Miss Dongfang said she was still unwell and couldn't help anybody else." And Yang Jihu said, "And what?" Yang Hong said, "She mocked Feng Wu." Yang Jihu stared at Yang Hong. Yang Hong shook his head. Miss Dongfang said, "Doesn't Feng Wu claim that she's a semi-divine medicine refiner? Tell her to cure herself." Yang Jihu frowned. "Double the fee. Won't she come for that?" Yang Hong said, "She said she would only come if we return Essence Crystal Mine number 3. I asked around and found out Miss Dongfang was also injured by Feng Wu." Yang Jihu was speechless. He opened his mouth to say something, but no sound came out. What could he say? Nothing. Master Fu is a step away from the supreme level. Shall we let him take a look at Xiao Wu? Asked Yang Hong. What choice did Yang Jihu have? He could only move aside and let Master Fu do his job. Seeing Master Fu check Feng Wu's pulse, Yang Jihu was greatly worried. Why did the military academy have a supreme-level medicine refiner, while Master Fu was the best they had? They were inferior to their opponent. Every time somebody in Imperial College was severely injured, they had to ask for Dongfang Ziyun's help. In the eyes of someone as straightforward as Yang Jihu, Dongfang Ziyun was too arrogant. All the flattery had only made her more unreasonable. However, she was the only supreme-level medicine refiner, and Imperial College had no choice but to beg for her help and pay a large fee every time. How frustrating! When would Master Fu become a supreme-level medicine refiner? Yang Jihu hoped it would happen as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Master Fu had finished examining Feng Wu. How's she doing? Yang Jihu asked the question as soon as Master Fu stood up. Master Fu gave Yang Jihu an indecipherable look. Yang Jihu was scared and grabbed Master Fu. Has she caught something incurable? Master Fu, say something. Master Fu felt Yang Jihu throttling him. No, it's nothing like that, said Master Fu. She's fine. Yang Jihu frowned. Why did she pass out? What's wrong with her? Yang Jihu gave Yang Jihu a strange look. What was wrong with her? Her veins were as strong as a tiger's, and her spiritual essence was flowing in her energy channel like surging waves. What could possibly be wrong with her? Master Fu shook his head. She's in perfect condition. Yang Jihu asked, why did she pass out? Master Fu said, you would pass out too if you haven't eaten for over 10 days. Yang Jihu said, do you mean? Master Fu said, she passed out because she's starving. He then gathered his things and was ready to leave. He had already been in bed when someone dragged him out. He thought it would be someone with an incurable disease, but the girl just needed food. Chapter 3146 3146 Life is so hard. 3146 Life is so hard. Master Fu cast a stern look at Yang Jihu. White Tiger, be careful when you punish people in the future. I can't believe you can do this to a pretty girl. Yang Jihu didn't know what to do. He hadn't done anything. However, he was known for his short temper. No wonder he was blamed for this. After Feng Wu was examined, Yang Jihu had the almost supreme-level medicine refiner check the two unfortunate women who had been beaten up by Feng Wu. Wang Zhala stole a glance at Yang Jihu. Their boss had always been tough, and saving face was his biggest concern. Feng Wu had created some major trouble this time, and Wang Zhala was worried Yang Jihu would scold Feng Wu again when she woke up. Wang Zhala gave Feng Wu a sympathetic glance and hoped she wouldn't wake up too soon. Yang Jihu saw the girl had moved around in bed and her arms were outside the blanket. Fearing that she would catch a cold, Yang Jihu tucked the blanket around her neck. He then told Wang Zhala, fetch some hot porridge. After some thought, he added, bring the stove here too. I don't want the porridge to get cold. Wang Zhala was surprised. What happened to his boss? He soon decided his boss wanted to feed the girl before lashing out at her. Poor girl. Wang Zhala was filled with sympathy and went to make the porridge himself. No one expected a little girl to beat up her two senior sisters. Wang Zhala knew he wouldn't want to offend her. Seeing Wang Zhala cooking over the stove, Yan Han moved closer and asked, Zhala, why are you making porridge? Wang Zhala shrugged. Colonel Yang told me to make this for the girl. Yan Han frowned. She hoped Yang Jihu would send Feng Wu away. If that girl stayed here. Cooking isn't for guys. Let me help you. Yan Han rolled up her sleeves and wanted to take over. Wang Zhaola recalled the way Yan Han talked to everybody about Feng Wu, and Han Lu and Gao Ye had only behaved that way because of Yan Han. The thought made his stomach lurch. He involuntarily said, "That's fine. Making porridge isn't hard. I can do it myself." Yan Han looked like an abandoned puppy. "Zhaola, do you think I started the whole thing? I just want to do something to express how sorry I am. I didn't know Feng Wu would hit them so hard." Wang Zhaola looked at her in astonishment. Shouldn't she feel sorry for urging people to slander Feng Wu behind her back? Why did she make it sound like it was Feng Wu's fault? Wang Zhaola's face darkened and he turned Yan Han down. "Colonel Yang told me to make some porridge, and I have to be the one to make it. If something goes wrong, will you take the blame?" Wang Zhaola had never been so serious before, and Yan Han's heart sank. She said meekly, "What could go wrong? Zhaola, is that what you think of me?" Yan Han burst into tears. She buried her face in her hands and ran off. Wang Zhaola was baffled and wondered if it was something he had said. Yang Hong smacked him on the shoulder. "Did you make her cry?" Wang Zhaola was dumbfounded. "I barely said anything to her. Why was life so hard?" Chapter 3147 3147 The Girl Who Eats a Lot. 3147 The Girl Who Eats a Lot. Yang Jihu was already quite frustrated. He put his hands behind his back and stared out the window. He was going to reprimand the girl when she woke up. She needed to know she couldn't mess around in the colonel's quarters, even if the crown prince was her patron. He turned around when he heard movement behind him. The girl stuck her head out of the blanket like a cute bunny. For the first time in his life, Yang Jihu knew what cute meant. He told himself to stay unaffected because he was supposed to reprimand her. The girl rubbed her eyes with her fair hands before putting her hands over her stomach and sitting up. She still felt weak, so she only stuck her head out, showing off her fair skin, exquisite chin, and her cheeks that still had some baby fat on them. The innocent and bewildered look on her face made one want to squeeze her adorable cheeks. Seeing the girl's round little head, Yang Jihu realized his anger had completely disappeared. The girl was simply too lovely. She pouted and rubbed her stomach as she looked at him with an innocent look on her face. It was as if he was the only person who could help her. Yang Jihu was nearly 30 years old and had just begun to develop a paternal instinct. He had a soft spot for adorable girls. He couldn't bring himself to say anything harsh to her. He had to put on a stern look as he stared at Feng Wu. "You're awake." Feng Wu recalled what happened before she passed out. She had beaten up 2 people who had been talking behind her back. She wondered how strict the military rules were. She could mention Elder Hulian's name, but she wasn't the kind of idiot who couldn't live without a patron. She was an independent girl. She would do everything on her own. Feng Wu's eyes darted around, and she knew what to do. "Hungry?" Yang Jihu stared at the girl and asked sternly. Feng Wu looked at Yang Jihu with her bright eyes and nodded. Wang Zhaola heard their conversation and came in with a bowl of porridge. Yang Jihu wanted to scold Feng Wu, but when he saw the look on her face, his anger disappeared right away. He beckoned Wang Zhaola over and gestured at him, telling him to give the porridge to Feng Wu. Feng Wu took the bowl and finished the porridge in one go. Her bold gesture wasn't something a pretty girl would do. Yang Jihu felt that even he didn't eat that way. Feng Wu wiped her mouth and looked eagerly at Yang Jihu. It was obvious what she wanted. Having no choice, Yang Jihu glanced at Wang Zhaola. Wang Zhaola ran out of the room and got Feng Wu another bowl of porridge. Feng Wu finished it in one go again. Yang Jihu wanted to laugh. The girl was pouring porridge down her throat like she was drinking wine. Feng Wu was still hungry. Yang Jihu said, "Let her have it. Let's see when she'll be full." When Yang Jihu sent Wang Zhaola to make the porridge, he had given the latter special permission to use the black rice in the storage room. Wang Zhaola had also added the meat of a magical beast to the porridge, as well as an entire essence crystal. The essence crystal was the size of an egg and came from Elder Heng. Ordinary people couldn't withstand that kind of energy and would die from their energy channels exploding. Yang Jihu watched as Feng Wu finished one bowl after another. The stack of bowls now towered above her head, but she still wanted more. In the end, she finished the whole pot, which was enough to feed Wang Zhaola's entire team. Chapter 3148 A New Cultivation Path. 3148 A New Cultivation Path. To feed the girl, Wang Zhaola went to the canteen in the colonel's quarters and brought back the porridge that was meant for all the colonels. However, the girl proved she had a bigger appetite than they had expected. 10 bowls. 100 bowls. 200 bowls. Yang Jihu and Wang Zhaola looked at each other with wide eyes. How much more could she eat? Feng Wu was equally surprised. What happened to her? Why couldn't she feel full? Everything she ate was immediately consumed by her dantian. Take this porridge for example. When she ate it, the useful spiritual essence was immediately absorbed by her dantian, while the rest was crushed and discarded. She could feel the spiritual essence increasing in her dantian. The speed was incredible. Each bowl didn't provide her with much energy, but it accumulated over time. She knew she had become an intermediate level 5 spiritual king. She had been a junior before passing out. Was she able to increase her cultivation level by eating? While Feng Wu was surprised by her special ability, Yang Jihu was shocked by her appetite. In the end, Yang Jihu was blown away. He stammered, Are you full yet? The girl looked at him with puppy eyes and shook her head repeatedly. Still no. Yang Jihu really wanted to cry. Feng Wu licked her lips and said meekly, The second batch of porridge tastes better. The batch she meant had more essence crystals in it and was prepared for kernels between level 6 and level 8. Yang Jihu didn't know how to express his feelings right now because one couldn't absorb spiritual essence infinitely. A cultivator could only ingest a limited amount of spiritual essence every day. If they crossed the threshold, their veins would explode, if their bodies didn't explode first. The girl had ingested far more spiritual essence than an ordinary cultivator could. Are you sure you're all right? Yang Jihu frowned. Feng Wu said, I'm hungry. Yang Jihu said, No, you can't eat anymore. You'll explode. Be a good girl. Feng Wu lowered her head in disappointment. All right. Yang Jihu fought back the impulse to rub her little head. Get some rest. Join us when you've recovered. Yang Jihu left after that. He was gone. Even he had forgotten he had waited here for so long because he wanted to reprimand her when she woke up. Yang Jihu met someone shortly after he left the room. Mr. Yang. It was Yen Han. Yang Jihu smiled at her. Yen Han, what are you doing here? It's late. You should go to bed. He walked away after that, but Yen Han followed him. She bit her lip as if she had been wronged. Mr. Yang, I'm here to confess. Confess? Yang Jihu looked at her in bewilderment. Yen Han said, They were talking about Feng Wu before, saying she became a colonel because of her connections, and they didn't like that. I said something bad about her, too. Yang Jihu waved her off. That's it? Don't worry about it. Yen Han said, It was my fault. I shouldn't have said those things about her, even if she came here because she pulled some strings. Yang Jihu laughed. Don't worry about it. You're the only one here who's not qualified to be a colonel. Elder Yen is the only reason you're here. Chapter 3149 She's a Genius. 3149 She's a Genius. Yang Jihu laughed. Don't worry about it. You're the only one here who's not qualified to be a colonel. Elder Yen is the only reason you're here. Yen Han's expression froze. Was Yang Jihu mocking her? However, that didn't seem to be the case when she looked at his earnest smile. She could only grit her teeth and change the subject. Feng Wu's real level is. Yang Jihu lost his temper when he heard that. His face darkened and he said angrily, I don't know who spread the rumor that she's a level 2 spiritual king. That's so misleading. If I find out who it was, I'll kick their ass. Yen Han felt a chill run down her spine. However, she stayed by Yang Jihu's side because she still wanted to slander Feng Wu. But she behaved like a level 2 spiritual king 2 weeks ago in the junior arena. She only just made a breakthrough before that. I've asked around. That's the truth. Yang Jihu shook his head. It's like you said. That was 2 weeks ago. Yen Han stared at him. Yang Jihu put his hands behind his back. He looked troubled, but he sounded like he was bragging. You have no idea. That girl is a genius. Yen Han wanted to leave because she had a feeling that she didn't want to hear the next part. She smiled bitterly. Mr. Yang, However, Yang Jihu had become excited and wouldn't let her leave. He complained to Yen Han, You have no idea how fast she's been making progress. She only joined the War Academy 6 months ago. Do you know how many ranks she has skipped? Once he started, he couldn't stop. While Feng Wu was unconscious, he had gone to ask Elder Hellion. When Elder Hellion showed him Feng Wu's school report, Yang Jihu couldn't believe his eyes. Seeing that Yen Han had the same reaction and the same dark face, Yang Jihu felt the satisfaction of inflicting his pain on other people. They hadn't had much time, so Elder Hellion didn't say much. Yang Jihu could tell that Elder Hellion still had more to say, but he made an excuse and left. If he listened any longer, he felt his cultivation would be affected. Yen Han wanted to bury her head in her hands. She didn't want to hear it. However, she was supposed to be a sympathetic princess, so she could only smile and try to change the subject. I guess Feng Wu is very impressive, but she injured Han Lu and Gao Ye so severely. According to the military rules. According to the rules, she would be whipped at least 80 times, which could kill her. Yang Jihu said sternly, Someone will be punished. There's no doubt about it. I won't let this kind of behavior continue. Yen Han heaved a sigh of relief. Believing she had achieved her goal, she said goodbye to Yang Jihu and left as fast as she could. After she was gone, Wang Zhaola arrived in a hurry. Mr. Yang, it's Feng Wu. Yang Jihu frowned. What now? She's still hungry. Wang Zhaola smiled awkwardly. After some thought, Yang Jihu took a handful of essence crystals out of his pocket. He hesitated, then handed Wang Zhaola an entire pouch. She can have them all. Wang Zhaola said, but you've been saving them for so long. Chapter 3150 How much can a girl eat? 3150 How much can a girl eat? Did Yang Jihu want to give them away? Of course not. He had been saving them for a long while. However, he couldn't starve the girl either. Therefore, Yang Jihu told Wang Zhaola, use them all. We have to feed the kid. All right, said Wang Zhaola. Wait. Yang Jihu stopped Wang Zhaola before the latter left. Don't tell anyone about Feng Wu's appetite. We don't want to damage her reputation. He wondered if the crown prince knew about this. Yang Jihu had just sat down when Wang Zhaola returned. Yang Jihu asked, shouldn't you be taking care of Feng Wu? Well, Wang Zhaola had an indescribable look on his face. Yang Jihu asked, has something happened to the girl? Is she all right? Wang Zhaola said, well. Yang Jihu slapped his desk. Speak. Wang Zhaola said, she's finished everything. She absorbed all the essence crystals you gave me. Yang Jihu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. It had taken him a year to accumulate all those essence crystals. What a wasteful girl! He felt like dropping to his knees and begging her to stop. Wang Zhaola asked, "What should we do now? The girl still says she's hungry." Yang Jihu was glad he never promised to feed the girl until she was full. "You can go now. I'll take care of it." After sending Wang Zhaola away, Yang Jihu paced up and down the room. What should he do now? He couldn't starve the kid, but he couldn't afford the expense either. He had no choice but to talk to Elder Heng. Elder Heng was shocked. "Really?" Yang Jihu nodded. "Yes. She can't stop eating. It's as if her stomach has turned into a bottomless pit, and all the food just disappears. We don't have enough essence crystals to give her." Elder Heng rubbed his chin. "We didn't have enough before, but maybe that's no longer the case. After all, she won us an essence crystal mine. However, we'll need Elder Hulian's permission first." Hence, Yang Jihu and Elder Heng went to see Elder Helian together. Elder Helian was a very stingy man, but he immediately said yes when he learned the essence crystals were for Feng Wu. Of course she can have them. She can take as many as she needs. There's no limit. Yang Jihu wanted to remind his superior that the decision would cost him a lot. He couldn't be too explicit, and the remainder was quite subtle. However, Elder Helian didn't think much of it. How much energy can a girl absorb? Don't be so stingy. Stingy? Yang Jihu nearly fainted. He asked gingerly, "Did Miss Feng Wu have such a big appetite before?" Elder Helian said, "Did she? I've never heard anything about it." Yang Jihu's stomach sank. Did she become this way because she fought with some girls in the colonel's quarters? Did that make it an injury she had suffered on the job? Elder Helian gave Yang Jihu a token. "Take this and get the essence crystals from mine number 3. It's guarded by Elder Wu." Yang Jihu said, "I'll probably need a lot." Elder Helian waved him off, not taking the reminder seriously. A lot? How much could a girl eat? Chapter 3151 Patrol the Territory. 3151 Patrol the Territory. When Yang Jihu saw Feng Wu chewing essence crystals as if they were sweets, he was glad he never promised to feed her until she was full. The first time he went to mine number 3, he came back with a handful of essence crystals. A handful was more than it sounded because it could provide enough energy for an elder to cultivate for a month. However, Feng Wu carried the small bag of essence crystals around and snacked on it wherever she went. The essence crystals were soon gone. Yang Jihu had to get more. Elder Wu was displeased to see Yang Jihu, but he still gave the latter more because they were for Feng Wu. The new batch lasted longer, but not too much. They were gone in 2 days. Feng Wu soon finished this batch. Yang Jihu wondered if Feng Wu really saw them as a snack. Why hadn't her energy channels exploded? It was a miracle. In the end, Yang Jihu couldn't stand it anymore. He took Feng Wu to mine number 3 and showed her inside. Most of the essence crystals in the mine had been used up already. He asked Feng Wu, "Do you want to find your food yourself?" Feng Wu was speechless. Did this man think she was some kind of baby and would lie on the ground, chewing on the rocks? Still, it was a great idea. She didn't need any token. All she needed was to show up. All the elders knew Feng Wu had taken the mine from Elder Dongfang after outwitting the latter. Led by Elder Helian, Imperial College had been a rather poor institute. They only had 2 mines now. Only the elders and a couple of their best students were qualified to cultivate in the mines. The first mine they had could hardly be called a mine. It was less than 100 meters long. There were over a dozen elders in Peace Grassland, and the place was packed when they all entered. It was such an embarrassing scene. It didn't look like cultivation at all. Luckily, Feng Wu obtained mine number 3 for them. The first 200 meters had been drained, and half a dozen elders were scattered in the last 100 meters. They were all cultivating and didn't notice Feng Wu. Elder Wu was filled with emotion when he saw Feng Wu. The first time they met was a month ago. Back then, he thought Feng Wu was only doing a little better than the other students. Although her talent was rare, it wasn't unique in Imperial College. However, what happened next proved him wrong. The girl had done amazing things in the competition against the military academy, in the junior arena and in the Dallas Woods, and had won them a mine. He thought he had seen everything, but she still amazed him. Elder Wu no longer treated Feng Wu as a junior cultivator. If he could, he would enshrine her. Feng Wu, I didn't know you were coming. Come in. Yang Jihu had been trying to find an excuse to get Feng Wu inside, but he was surprised by Elder Wu's reaction. Elder Wu was supposed to treat everyone in an indifferent manner. Feng Wu walked inside, still chewing on essence crystals. This was the first time she had seen the mine since she won it from Elder Dongfang. It's on the smaller side. Feng Wu walked next to Elder Wu as if she was patrolling her own territory. Chapter 3152 How Wonderful. 3152 How Wonderful. It's on the smaller side. Feng Wu walked next to Elder Wu as if she was patrolling her own territory. Elder Wu told Feng Wu, it's big enough. The first one is only 100 meters long. The military academy has been using this one for many years, but there are still 100 meters left. Feng Wu studied the unexploited section and realized there was only a thin layer of essence crystals. There wasn't much left. She put a hand on her stomach, her face turning pale. Elder Wu asked in concern, "What's wrong?" Just then, they heard familiar footsteps outside. It was Elder Helion. Seeing Feng Wu, Elder Helion went up to her in a hurry. "Kiddo, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Feng Wu smiled bitterly. "I'm starving," Elder Helion said. "That sounds so serious. What happened? Why are you suddenly unwell?" Being a semi-divine medicine refiner, Feng Wu knew herself better than anyone else. She couldn't figure it out at first, but after analyzing herself for the past 2 days, she finally knew what was going on. She said, "Ultimately, it's because I made too many breakthroughs in such a short time. When I passed out from starvation, some of my hidden symptoms flared up." She rubbed her forehead. "I made too much progress in the past year. I started off as a spiritual master a year ago, and I'm a level 5 spiritual king now. My level has been rising, but I've been stretching out my spiritual essence. It's like when a person grows too fast until their nutrition can't keep up with that speed. In the end, something serious is bound to happen. My hunger for spiritual essence now is in response to my past deficiency. I simply need too much spiritual essence. It seems I'll never be able to eat enough." Feng Wu raised her head to find everybody staring at her in astonishment, including Elder Helion, Elder Wu, and Yang Jihu. Even the elders who had been cultivating in the mine had stopped what they were doing, and were looking at her silently. No one spoke, and the mine became dead silent. She wasn't showing off, which was even worse. Feng Wu asked, "Are you all right?" Elder Helion wanted to leave. Was she even human? How could she do all that? These elders were already outstanding cultivators, but Feng Wu's words were still such a hard blow to them, let alone other people. Feng Wu said, She wondered if she had said something wrong. She said, "I'm so hungry." Elder Helion sighed. "Go ahead. You won this mine. You can have as much as you want." Feng Wu's eyes lit up. "Really?" Elder Helion said, "That's right. How many essence crystals can you use, anyway?" He knew the monthly consumption of spiritual overlords. Feng Wu was only a spiritual king, so how much could she need? Elder Helion wasn't worried at all. She can't use more than 1,000, thought Elder Helion. But, crack. When Feng Wu sat down with her legs crossed, the essence crystals within a meter of her began to crack, as if they were drained of energy. Crack. The range expanded to 2 meters around her, and the ground looked like a spiderweb now. Crack. Elder Hulian's face turned green. The range had expanded to 5 meters. He suddenly rose to his feet and couldn't look away. As for Yang Jihu. Chapter 3153 3153 Group of 8. 3153 Group of 8. Elder Helion didn't know how to react. Feng Wu seemed to have turned into an essence crystal vacuum cleaner. She was consuming essence crystals like a tornado. Yang Jihu stole a glance at Elder Helion before looking at Feng Wu, who was oblivious. He thought, I knew this was going to happen. Elder Helion is so jumpy. He thought he knew everything about Feng Wu, but he soon grew uneasy because, crack, that range had expanded to 10 meters, and the ground cracked even further. Normal essence crystals were white with a pale green tint, which was the color of the spiritual essence within. However, the essence crystals on the ground had become. Elder Wu grabbed a handful and showed it to Elder Helion, who sensed the spiritual essence within. There was nothing left. The crystals had all been drained. There wasn't a trace left. That was to say, the essence crystals beneath the cracked ground had all become useless. They were no different from ordinary stones. The only function they had now was as building material. Elder Helion watched Feng Wu with a pleading look in his eyes. He crossed his fingers and hoped the girl could leave some for the other members of the school. 20 meters. 50 meters. Elder Helion didn't have much hope left. The other elders were all stunned. That was incredible. What kind of creature was this girl? Her absorption rate. Won't she explode? Elder Wu licked his dry lips and asked Elder Helion in bewilderment. The other elders were equally confused. Elder Helion said in frustration, How am I supposed to know? Yang Jihu licked his lips and wondered if the colonel's quarters would need to pay for this loss. After all, Feng Wu was one of them now. While everybody was transfixed, they heard approaching footsteps. They sounded quite familiar. Elder Helion looked up to see some old acquaintances. It was Elder Dongfang, the last person Elder Helion wanted to see at the moment. Because the wound on Dongfang Xian's neck still hadn't healed, Elder Dongfang wanted to take her to the essence crystal mine, where Dongfang Xian could use the spiritual essence to heal her wound. The elders weren't exactly happy with Dongfang Xian, but she was the only supreme-level medicine refiner that they knew of and who could be used against Imperial College. Because of that, they didn't say anything. After Dongfang Xian circulated the spiritual essence in her system, her treatment was over for the day. Elder Dongfang was ready to leave. However, Dongfang Xian insisted on going to mine number 3 when she heard Feng Wu was there. Elder Dongfang couldn't change her mind, so she took her niece there to have a look. They were currently in mine number 2, and 6 other elders were cultivating here. 3 of them used to cultivate in mine number 3 and now had to squeeze into mine number 2 after number 3 became Imperial Colleges. Because of that, the 3 of them were quite displeased. Hearing that Elder Dongfang was going to number 3, they decided to go with her for sentimental reasons. After that, the other 3 elders decided to tag along. Hence, the group of 8 went on a one-day trip to mine number 3. Chapter 3154 3154 Frustration. 3154 Frustration. The 2 mines weren't too far apart, and the elders arrived at their destination within 15 minutes. When they arrived, Feng Wu was breaking the mine apart. The ground beneath her was cracking, and the cracks were expanding in all directions. It already looked like a spiderweb and reminded one of when Jun Linyuan farted repeatedly. Feng Wu had no idea she was absorbing spiritual essence like a vacuum cleaner. Seeing this, Elder Helion thought his heart was going to stop. His face drained of all color, and he put a hand over his chest. He was going to pass out. However, his old enemy arrived at that moment. Elder Dongfang stood on the edge and looked down at the people in the mine. The mine was essentially a pit, and Elder Dongfang could see everything happening inside. She saw the elders sitting there in bewilderment, while Feng Wu was sitting in another spot all by herself. As for the ground of the mine, Dongfang Ziyun had been so weak that she couldn't walk around without her aunt's help. However, she grew excited when she saw this. "Aunt!" Her shriek was quite harsh. Elder Dai glanced at Dongfang Ziyun in bewilderment. She had seemed too weak to speak only a moment ago. Why was she so loud now? Dongfang Ziyun was over the moon because she thought she had found a way to defeat Feng Wu. "Aunt!" Dongfang Ziyun grabbed Elder Dongfang's hand and shouted, "Look! What's happening to the mine? Why has the ground cracked? Is this some sort of curse, or is it the wrath of heaven?" "A curse? The wrath of heaven? What slander!" Dongfang Ziyun was trying to ruin Feng Wu. The elders of Imperial College were furious. They all turned their furious gazes on Dongfang Ziyun. Yang Jihu was a level 9 spiritual king and was the weakest member here. Hence, when all the elders stared at Dongfang Ziyun together, it was more than she could take. She nearly passed out in fear. Although she managed to stay conscious, the gazes would still disturb her mind for a long time. Dongfang Ziyun wouldn't be able to make any progress anytime soon. Elder Dongfang reacted quickly and dragged Dongfang Ziyun away from the edge. She stared at Elder Helion. "What are you doing? Why are you and your elders bullying a girl?" Before Elder Helion could speak, Elder Wu smirked. "Why is an old girl bullying a little girl, then?" "An old girl?" Dongfang Ziyun couldn't believe her ears. Elder Wu said righteously, "Xiao Wu isn't 15 yet and is only a girl. How old are you now? Aren't you ashamed of bullying Xiao Wu?" Dongfang Ziyun spat out a mouthful of blood. She was furious. Elder Dongfang fumed. "You!" Elder Helion glared at Elder Dongfang. "Shut up. You're halfway into your grave, but you still won't leave a 14-year-old alone. What are you, 15? Elder Dongfang also spat out a mouthful of blood. Elder Helion pointed at Elder Dongfang. "Why is your niece so unreasonable? She's behaving this way because she's mimicking her senior." Chapter 3155 3155 Imperial College's mine is gone. 3155 Imperial College's mine is gone. Elder Dongfang spat out a mouthful of blood in frustration. Since when did Elder Helion become so eloquent? He hadn't been so harsh before. Elder Dongfang had no idea that the change in Elder Helion was caused by Feng Wu. Because he wanted to protect his kid now, he no longer feared anything. Moreover, Feng Wu was so talented and wanted very little from the school. Therefore, he became much more capable. Seeing the two elders fighting, Elder Gu frowned. What happened? Why are all the essence crystals shattered? Dongfang Ziyun said, "Look. The cracks are centered around Feng Wu. She must be the reason." Elder Gu couldn't begin to describe how much it pained him to see this. He and the other two elders used to cultivate here. The spacious mine was almost destroyed. The space was 100 meters long and 20 meters wide. The ground was around 2,000 square meters in size, and cracks covered the entire area. Elder Gu jumped into the mine, grabbed a handful of essence crystals, and examined them. There was no spiritual essence. Not a single trace. What happened? Elder Gu stared at Elder Wu. "Mine number 3 was perfectly fine when we handed it over. Why did the essence crystals turn into rocks? What did you do to them?" Elder Wu felt equally sorry, but what could he do? The girl was hungry, and they had to feed her first. Elder Helion said so, and none of the other elders objected. They felt sorry about losing all the essence crystals, but it was Feng Wu who had given them this mine, and she could use it however she wanted. Right now, they all wanted to protect her and keep her abnormality from other people. They were acutely aware of the fact that Feng Wu's secret had to remain a secret. Elder Wu lost his temper when he heard Elder Gu's question. Elder Wu snapped, "Who the hell are you? Do you know whose mine it is? What gives you the right to question me? Do you hear Elder Hellion saying anything?" Elder Dai said, "That's right. Is it your mine now? Stop gabbing." Elder Gu snorted. "You must be so proud of yourself. Imperial College was much more polite when you people begged for our help. You've found yourself a patron, haven't you?" Elder Gu mocked Elder Dai. "Are you seeing this? The mine you've worked so hard to steal from us is gone. The essence crystals have been reduced to rubble. You don't have anything to use. Your old mine is almost drained. Imperial College doesn't have a mine left. How are you going to cultivate from now on? Don't come to us and beg for our help. We won't give you a dime. Good luck." Elder Gu then told Elder Dongfang, "Let's go. They'll beg us one day." The other elders of the military academy also sneered at the elders of Imperial College. There were even looks of pity in their eyes. Dongfang Xian smirked and confirmed that Feng Wu's good fortune had come to an end. Something happened at that moment. There was a strange sound. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.